However, he couldn't bear to watch a world he had just come to know spiral into chaos. So, he decided to intervene. If he couldn't defeat them, perhaps he could at least intimidate them. Stop. Being from Heavenly Emperor City, yet wanting to destroy Heavenly Emperor City, even at the cost of inciting war, this is truly hard to ignore. Stop pretending to be mysterious. Show yourself. The leader, panic-stricken, looked around nervously, shouting in agitation. He had no idea someone was hiding nearby. Even City Lord Philip Lawrence wouldn't dare treat me like this, and yet a mere mid to upper level warrior dares raise his voice at me? Truly insolent, The final was especially emphasized, reflecting this person's fury. The ninja leader silently contemplated. After receiving news from his subordinates about spotting third Miss Sterling, he immediately reported it to his superiors, before following her here. Initially, he hadn't planned to act, but decided to intervene when it seemed Miss Sterling was about to succeed. This time, encountering such a peculiar figure, he couldn't discern where the voice was coming from. Moreover, this person had exposed a scheme orchestrated by his superiors, a high-level secret even he wasn't fully aware of. How could this person know? And if not even the city lord dared challenge him, could it be that this individual was even more formidable? The city lord had already reached the 9th rank of Battle King. For a moment, he was thrown into confusion, involuntarily stepping back 2 paces. The mysterious figure was none other than Kevin Schuyler. Kevin Schuyler had split into 4 clones, positioning them in 4 directions. Each clone emitted sounds at slightly different speeds, making it seem as though the voice came from all around. The ninja's reaction further confirmed Kevin Schuyler's suspicion. These people were not from Maple Leaf City. Kevin Schuyler's earlier words were merely speculation, but it was now clear that this time, a certain force within Heavenly Emperor City had sparked the war for some unknown reason. However, the specific motive likely extended beyond a simple struggle for the throne of Heavenly Emperor City. Ninjas, possessing the highest overall aptitude among all warriors, could not be easily intimidated into chaos. Moreover, judging by their knowledge of Sterling, these individuals were likely from Heavenly Emperor City. Get out of my sight. Killing you would dirty my hands. Go back and tell your turtle-shell master that if he dares to disturb me again, I, Lion, will obliterate his entire faction. The voice carried immense authority and fury, resonating through the dense forest. As Kevin Schuyler recounted this, cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Controlling the vortex above and manipulating the surrounding energy field, Lian exerted pressure on everyone present. The leader, who initially intended to probe further, broke into a cold sweat upon hearing this. The invisible pressure steadily advanced. Lian, though unfamiliar, seemed to have an intimate understanding of their group, even knowing their master. Though it was merely a patrol, the leader's true identity was that of a spy for the master's secret organization. But how had this individual seen through him? Regardless, the leader had already reported to his superiors, and their response was to prevent the priestess's seal. Once noon passed, the seal would become ineffective, rendering the priestess irrelevant, dead or alive. This matter was no longer worth meddling in, nor did it warrant taking risks. Moreover, noon had already arrived, and the seal's time had passed. Killing the priestess now made no difference. After careful consideration, the leader waved his hand and said, "Retreat." The group immediately withdrew, without leaving a trace. Kevin Schuyler confirmed multiple times that no one remained before hurriedly stepping out to check the breaths of the 2 bodyguards. It seemed they had perished. Meanwhile, Lady Sterling was still struggling to activate the holy sword. Kevin Schuyler silently observed her. Her frail body, yet resolute endurance of such overwhelming power, astonished him. Though trembling all over, her posture and hand gestures stood firm like a statue between heaven and earth, resembling a goddess descended to the mortal realm, unwavering in her task. Finally, she coughed up a mouthful of blood and collapsed entirely. Kevin Schuyler quickly rushed forward to catch her, letting her upper body rest against his shoulder. The young woman saw that the approaching figure was a youthful man. She let out a helpless, bitter smile and murmured, "Could this be fate? The seal that the priestess clan has protected for 100 years is now destroyed just like that? Why was it ruined in my hands? I'm truly useless." Kevin Schuyler calmly analyzed the situation and was about to offer some words of comfort when his spiritual senses suddenly trembled. A powerful individual was approaching. Unbeknownst to Kevin Schuyler himself, his sensitivity to energy was incredibly sharp. The overwhelming aura of this person was left completely unmasked, allowing Kevin Schuyler to detect it from afar. It seemed the person was extremely confident. They were swiftly heading in this direction, and there also appeared to be a familiar energy signature. It seemed to be someone brought here by the ninja from earlier. Without hesitation, Kevin Schuyler scooped up the young woman and prepared to evade the approaching figures by heading toward Heavenly Emperor City. However, the woman, with a weak and trembling hand, tugged at Kevin Schuyler's sleeve and said, "You mustn't go to Heavenly Emperor City. They are on the same side. Returning there means certain death." Kevin Schuyler immediately turned around. With one direction ruled out, the only choice was the opposite path, which led to Celestial Star Forest. At that moment, Kevin Schuyler's mind raced through a series of thoughts. The woman had just stated that returning would mean certain death, leaving no room for doubt. Without delay, he turned toward the forest. Better to face wild beasts than fall into the hands of treacherous enemies. Carrying Miss Sterling, Kevin Schuyler exerted all his strength to flee the area. Naturally, following Miss Sterling's instructions, he didn't abandon the holy sword. The sword, measuring 2 meters in length and with a blade 30 centimeters wide, was truly a colossal weapon. It was also incredibly heavy, weighing at least 100 kilograms. Even with such burdens, Kevin Schuyler dared not waste a moment. He meticulously erased all traces of their escape. His observational skills were extraordinarily sharp at that time, ensuring that every trace of their departure was completely wiped away. The person who arrived was the superior of the leader. Upon hearing the subordinate's report, he immediately flew into a rage, beating the subordinate harshly. "What's in that head of yours? Frightened by just a few words? You're a mid-level warrior, yet you ran off without even seeing the opponent's face? Am I feeding you all for nothing?" After being scolded, the leader felt deeply aggrieved. After all, the seal hadn't worked. Instead of being rewarded or praised for his discovery, he was berated like this. He thought to himself, "I don't even want to do this anymore. What if the opponent turns out to be a battle king? Wouldn't he crush me like an ant?" They even said that not even City Lord Philip Lawrence dared to raise his voice against him. What could I possibly do? Though he thought this, he didn't dare voice it aloud. Feeling wronged, the leader led his superior to the scene. However, upon arrival, they found nothing, no trace of the 2 dead guards, no blood, not even a hint that anything had ever occurred. It was as if the entire incident had been erased. Enraged once more, the superior beat the leader again. "I followed you all the way here for what? To look at nothing? You spun some grand tale for me, made it sound so real, and now look, there's nothing to see." The leader was utterly frustrated. Moments ago, everything had clearly been there. What on earth was going on? Could it have all been a dream? He glanced toward the celestial star forest, shook his head, and felt a whirlwind of emotions churning inside him. The one who had erased the traces was, of course, Kevin Schuyler. At that moment, Kevin Schuyler was perched on a massive tree near the central area of the celestial star forest. The tree was so enormous that one couldn't see its full shape from any single angle. Carefully concealed, Kevin Schuyler observed his surroundings. Only when dusk approached and no pursuers appeared did he finally relax. Throughout this time, Miss Sterling remained quietly nestled in Kevin Schuyler's arms. Looking at the young man, a few years her junior, a peculiar feeling stirred in her heart. His delicate features, high nose bridge, and faint stubble on his chin all exuded a youthful charm. Yet, his eyes were bright and intelligent, filled with wisdom. His eyebrows, arched like coiled dragons, revealed his tension in the moment. As Kevin Schuyler exhaled in relief, he finally became aware of the softness in his arms. The two exchanged glances and were both startled. Kevin Schuyler saw a pair of pure, crystalline eyes, shimmering like dew, resembling the stars and moon on a dark night. That purity left him shaken, and her long lashes fluttered, radiating an irresistible allure. Meanwhile, Miss Sterling saw a pair of sharp yet calm eyes. Though slightly youthful, they held a remarkable composure and clarity, as if they could pierce through all things and comprehend the universe. The two stared at each other, minutes passing, before either realized their situation. Kevin Schuyler was oblivious, but Hannah Sterling, being from a noble family, quickly became aware. The young man's hand was firmly resting on her waist, while the other was securely beneath her thigh. In such close proximity, both could catch the scent of the other, a faint, elegant fragrance mingling with a pure, strong, slightly youthful, but subtly mature aroma. Hannah Sterling coughed softly, turning her face away as a faint blush appeared, struggling to escape Kevin Schuyler's embrace. Kevin Schuyler found holding this young woman incredibly comforting, yet a part of him was reluctant to let go. "Are you all right?" Kevin Schuyler's firm voice resonated, his tone direct and unwavering. I'm fine," she stammered. Kevin Schuyler gazed at the young woman, sinking deep into thought. Piecing together everything he had observed, combined with his sharp logical reasoning, he knew that clarifying a few key points would unravel the entire situation. His eyes shifted toward the setting sun, his entire being lost in thought. He stared intently at the blood-red and dark purple clouds in the sky, remaining motionless for a long time. ### Chapter 11, The Beast Tribe Invasion. Suddenly, Kevin Schuyler felt the ground beneath him tremble violently. The surrounding trees and scattered rocks seemed to dance and sway with the vibrations. "An earthquake?" he muttered, frowning as he looked deeper into the forest. But his assumption was quickly overturned by an earth-shaking roar. Far in the sky, a massive flock of dark flying beasts descended, casting an enormous shadow over the land. Leading the formation was an enormous bird-like creature, clearly the leader, with wings spanning over 20 meters wide. Roar. A deafening roar shattered the heavens and earth, and the flying beasts behind it echoed with guttural growls. The sky, once covered by clouds, was torn apart by the sheer force of their cries. Kevin Schuyler leaped swiftly to the treetops, enduring the powerful sound waves. Though the noise shook the heavens, it still paled in comparison to the dragon horde from before. Looking down, Kevin Schuyler was taken aback. The Beast Tribe's formation stretched nearly a kilometer, surging toward Heavenly Emperor City like a tidal wave. Among them were giant centaurs, mammoth-like creatures, snake demons with human torsos and serpent tails. An uncountable number of beast tribes charged forward in chaos under the leader's command. Their pace was slow but relentless, their overwhelming aura suffocating even from 1,000 meters away. Each beast roared ferociously, exuding a terrifying, bloodthirsty presence. It was like witnessing a massive multiple trains, thundering forward. Kevin Schuyler trembled slightly, sweat beading on his forehead. Such an army, if it breached the defensive lines, how could humanity possibly withstand it? Despite their ferocity, the beast tribes refrained from destroying the trees or recklessly charging as they had in the past. Pondering this, Kevin Schuyler quickly returned to the tree trunk, scooped up Miss Sterling, and leaped to the treetop. Concealing themselves with branches, he sat down to carefully observe the beast tribe's massive army. Indeed, they have come, they truly have arrived. Kevin Schuyler looked at Hannah Sterling. Why did the beast clan attack the moment the seal was broken? Could it be that the southern continent possesses something the beast clan desires? Do you not know? In ancient times, the southern continent wasn't divided into 3 nations but was instead a vast forest, the territory of the beast clan. Later, human ancestors arrived, built cities, and established nations. However, as humanity's power grew stronger and their territory expanded, the beast clan could no longer tolerate humans encroaching on their land, leading to a war between the two races. At that time, our ancestors didn't engage in direct combat with the beast clan, Instead, they offered the Beast Clan various martial arts techniques and magical resources in exchange for permission to live on the land. Although the Beast Clan was numerous, they lacked the formidable combat abilities of humans and had long envied humanity's extraordinary cultivation methods. Thus, they agreed to let humans coexist. But on one condition: humans were not to further expand their territory. However, humanity developed too rapidly, and it wasn't long before they had explored and settled the entirety of the southern forest. As human strength grew, the Beast Clan issued warnings, but humanity openly declared war against them. This sparked an unprecedented conflict. Both sides were evenly matched in power. To defeat the Beast Clan, the leader of humanity at the time decided to infiltrate the celestial star forest and strike the enemy from within. Consequently, the three city lords of that era, Shan Shao, Si Wen, and Ku Er, personally led an elite force into the forest. It was then they discovered that deep within the forest were three major races: the Elven Clan, the Immortal Clan, and the Beast Clan. Humans bordered the Beast Clan's territory. The three city lords endured countless hardships to persuade the peace-loving Elven Clan to mediate between humanity and the Beast Clan. However, the Beast Clan, being the strongest race at the time and now armed with human cultivation techniques, dismissed the Elven Clan's advice. Their armies marched southward, leaving a trail of bloodshed over 500 miles, slaughtering countless humans. Rivers of blood flowed, and human corpses were scattered everywhere. Humanity suffered repeated defeats, retreating to their final defensive line. At this critical moment, a human subgroup called the Shaman Clan used their own lives to create a powerful barrier, halting the Beast Clan's advance. Exhausted from the prolonged invasion, the Beast Clan's army eventually retreated, leaving humanity with a sliver of hope. Thus, maintaining the seal that kept the Beast Clan outside the barrier became a sacred duty passed down through generations of the Shaman Clan. But in my generation, why did something go wrong? At this point, tears streamed down Hannah Sterling's face. Kevin Schuyler silently analyzed the situation. This war might very well be a scheme orchestrated by humans. Perhaps they believed their strength had reached its peak and completely underestimated the so-called foolish beasts. This time, with both internal strife and external threats, there might be someone secretly pulling the strings. Otherwise, how could a seal that had lasted nearly 1,000 years suddenly fail? Roar! The Beast Clan in the distance had drawn closer, their gigantic footsteps pounding the ground like a sieve, causing constant tremors. Kevin Schuyler quickly concealed his aura, remaining motionless while hiding atop a large tree. Fortunately, this tree was truly massive, so much so that the violent vibrations did not cause Kevin Schuyler and Hannah to fall. Kevin Schuyler couldn't comprehend it. If the seal was tied to the safety of all humanity, why would anyone try to stop it? Heavenly Emperor City, within the royal palace. Philip Lawrence was reading a book, preparing to remove his nightgown, when suddenly, a shadow darted in directly through the window. A masked figure, moving at incredible speed, appeared beside Philip Lawrence, their eyes filled with extreme fear and panic. Philip Lawrence tossed the book aside and was about to scold the intruder but, upon reconsideration, held back. These subordinates of his were all trusted confidants, his most capable aides, trained through life and death trials, elite operatives with exceptional qualities. Yet today, one of them seemed so alarmed. What's the matter? City Lord, according to reports from the front lines near the Celestial Star Forest, Captain Harold Bates detected signs of significant Beast Clan activity a few days ago. It has now been confirmed, a massive Beast Clan army has mobilized and is less than 300 kilometers away. At the latest, they will reach the first defensive line by tomorrow. The masked figure hurriedly delivered these words as though holding their breath, speaking so quickly it was hard to discern. But City Lord Philip Lawrence, upon hearing this report, was so startled he sprang to his feet. With a single palm strike, the desk beside him shattered into pieces, leaving a large crater on the ground. What did you say? The City Lord suppressed his anger. The news was indeed true. Captain Harold Bates had personally come to report and was currently waiting outside the hall. Philip. Lawrence took a deep breath. These subordinates were all his trusted confidants, known for their swift and decisive actions. Though the matter seemed unbelievable, there was no choice but to believe it now. Philip Lawrence paced back and forth a few times before softly speaking to the man in black. "Assemble all the brothers of the Shadow Division and wait at the Royal Council Hall." "Understood." As soon as the words were spoken, the man in black vanished. Heavenly Emperor City, Royal Council Hall. 20 figures dressed in black stood neatly in the middle of the hall, their gazes fixed on the platform above. From behind the platform, Philip Lawrence hurriedly approached. Though his pace was quick, it was steady and composed. He ascended the platform, casting a glance at the 20 individuals below. These were the Shadow Division of the Heavenly Guardian Legion, a group Philip Lawrence held in the highest regard. The strength of these individuals was unparalleled, with even the weakest among them being at an advanced level. Each member was meticulously selected, elite operatives of the highest caliber. Over the years, nearly half of the missions had been accomplished by these 20 people. Their leader, Uchiha Itachi, was renowned as the foremost figure in Heavenly Emperor City. His abilities even surpassed those of Philip Lawrence. However, he was fiercely loyal, having been a brother to Philip Lawrence since childhood, contributing greatly to his grand ambitions. Though only in his early 20s, Uchiha Itachi was already the supreme commander of Heavenly Emperor City and the leader of the Shadow Division. His position was on par with, if not superior to, the commander of the Heavenly Guardian Legion. The 20 individuals raised their heads to look at their lord, their expressions devoid of any emotion. They made no sound, not even the faintest breath could be heard. "There are several tasks I am entrusting to you. They must be completed in the shortest time possible. Anyone who delays will face death without mercy." The 20 individuals remained motionless, silently listening. "First, deliver these 2 letters swiftly to the other 2 city lords. Monday, mobilize the entire Heavenly Guardian Legion and assemble at the square outside the city. Tuesday, arrange for the unconditional relocation of all residents in zones 10 to 23 in the northern area. Wednesday, deploy all 1,000 members of the Covert Operations Unit to the Royal Palace, always ready for orders. Additionally, the security forces of all regions are to form units and immediately head to the Royal Palace. Execute. Without any unnecessary explanations or additional instructions, 20 individuals, along with 2 sealed letters, vanished in the blink of an eye. Suddenly, all the lights in Heavenly Emperor City were lit up, and the massive alarm sirens echoed throughout the city. The solemn, piercing sound traveled from afar to nearby, as if a leisurely figure was slowly passing through. The synchronized footsteps outside the city walls resounded as all regional security forces converged on the royal palace. The residents, though unaware of what was happening, showed no signs of panic. Evidently, similar drills had been conducted many times before. But this time, without prior notice, could it truly be real? Tens of thousands of streets were devoid of any passers-by, the residential areas were eerily silent. Only squads of armored cavalry swiftly moved through. Inside the royal palace's communication chamber, the command was transmitted via the magical formation to the distant Heavenly Guardian Legion. Heavenly Guardian Legion, Heavenly Guardian Legion, this is headquarters. The city lord has issued an order, immediately gather the entire force and assemble at the square. I repeat. Outside Heavenly Emperor City, at the Heavenly Guardian Legion's base. The tranquil night was abruptly interrupted by the assembly signal, faint yet distinct. Over a dozen messengers simultaneously blew their horns, and the vast base instantly resonated with the echoing sound of the signal. Boom, boom. The war drums thundered, at first 1, then 2, and finally nearly 1,000 drums roared together, shaking the heavens and trembling the earth. Relay my order, all soldiers are to assemble immediately, fully armed. Cavalry will lead, the air force will guide the way, infantry will follow, and archers will bring up the rear. Anyone who disobeys will be executed on the spot. No one questioned why, no one complained. Soldiers who were just moments ago dreaming in their beds now stood fully equipped in the square, ready to depart. The vast square, nearly 10,000 square meters, was instantly packed with people. The once pitch-black barracks were now brightly lit. Everyone stood in solemn anticipation, their expressions not of resentment or frustration but of joy and excitement. How many years had it been? How many years since the war drums last sounded? Today, nearly 1,000 drums roared in unison, igniting the fighting spirit in the blood of these warriors, true soldiers. Everyone was waiting, anticipating the arrival of the marshal. At this moment, every heart was filled with fervor, yet there was not a single unnecessary sound, not even a breath. Above the square, flocks of flying figures, resembling kites, silently hovered and circled in the sky. Upon closer inspection, they were people. Each held a large bow in their left hand, a quiver of arrows strapped to their back, and a massive kite of unknown material that was astonishingly sturdy. One by one, they took off from afar, joining this formidable army. On the ground, neat, square formations stood in perfect order. Identical sharp blades hung at each soldier's side, long spears held upright above their heads. Uniform attire, identical weapons, yet not a hint of chaos. They stood as still as statues in the square. Despite their numbers, there was no noise, only an eerie silence, as if the sound of 10,000 horses had vanished. In the center of the square, on a high platform, a towering figure appeared. It was Victor King, Supreme Commander of the Heavenly Guardian Legion. He wore a white battle robe and silver armor that gleamed brilliantly under the lights. Behind him followed 8 deputy generals, dressed in similar attire. Without saying another word, the overlord's sword was drawn and pointed directly at the royal palace. "March," he commanded. The voice of one man overshadowed the roar of thousands of drums, reaching the ears of every soldier. "Charge!" The orderly cavalry surged forward, like a torrential flood pouring toward the square's exit. The same scene unfolded in Maple Leaf City and Phoenix City. 3 armies advanced toward the same destination, Celestial Star Forest. Outside Thunderstead Village lay the temporary command center of the Allied forces. The 3 city lords and high-ranking generals gathered here, a massive conference table placed in the center. City Lord Philip Lawrence sat at one end. Beside him was a woman of exceptionally tall stature, her eyes as bright as the serene blue moon, sitting quietly. She exuded an incredibly natural aura, wearing a golden crown nearly 20 centimeters tall, a flowing white gown, and her jet-black hair cascading down to her waist. Her figure was flawless, her beauty unparalleled, without a trace of fluctuation. Just a single furrow of her brows, or a slight smile, could captivate hearts, making it impossible to resist. Truly, she was a peerless beauty of national renown. Sophia Lawrence lived up to her name as an extraordinary beauty. On the other side, a middle-aged man with silver hair, wearing a turban, stared fixedly at Sophia Lawrence's chest, drool dripping onto the conference table, his eyes sparkling with stars. This man was none other than Ethan Woods, the city lord of Maple Leaf City. Dressed like a ninja, his white hair was tied back, and loose wooden clogs adorned his feet. Despite the current discussion being about the life and death of the 3 nations, Lord Ethan Woods seemed utterly indifferent. Ahem. Philip Lawrence, seeing Ethan Woods' blatant behavior, shot him a disdainful glance. "Fellow city lords, you must have received the news. The Beast Tribe's army has already approached the first line of defense. At the latest, by tomorrow morning, the 2 sides will clash. Brother, I truly don't understand. Why is the seal still intact, yet the Beast clan dares to invade? Could it be that the seal has been broken?" The one speaking was Ethan Woods. Though he voiced these words, his gaze remained fixed on Sophia Lawrence. "That's correct. We've just received news that the seal has been shaken, but for some reason, the Wu clan hasn't reinforced it," Philip Lawrence replied helplessly, looking at him. "Could it be that something has happened to the Wu clan?" Sophia Lawrence ignored Ethan Woods' intense gaze and spoke in a calm tone. "According to the detective's report, the 3rd young lady of the Sterling clan mysteriously disappeared a few days ago without a trace. She had once commissioned a task in Heavenly Emperor City through me, but after that, her whereabouts became unknown," Philip Lawrence added thoughtfully. Such an important matter, yet you've been so careless. This is utterly irresponsible. Ethan Woods finally shifted his gaze to Philip Lawrence and directly criticized him. What do you mean by that? For nearly 1,000 years, there hasn't been a single problem. How was I supposed to know something would happen now? Besides, this is an internal matter of our nation. Who could possibly harm the Wu clan? Philip Lawrence immediately retorted, clearly irritated, wishing he could punch Ethan on the spot. The two hadn't even begun discussing their strategy, but were already arguing, a habit they had grown accustomed to. Sophia Lawrence, unfazed, remained silent, lost in thought. Nowadays, the combined strength of our three nations has far surpassed that of the past. Furthermore, new weapons, magic, ninjutsu, and combat techniques have emerged one after another. I wonder if we can fend off the Beast clan's attack this time, Sophia Lawrence murmured, her tone revealing concern, yet her expression remained as calm as still water, devoid of any emotion. Next, the three city lords, each showcasing their strategic acumen, devised flawless battle plans. For this battle, they were confident and unstoppable, advancing like a hot knife through butter. Outside, the grand armies of the three nations stood in orderly formations. It was no wonder the three city lords were unconcerned about the Beast tribe's attack. The Heavenly Guardian Legion, with nearly 100,000 soldiers, consisted entirely of warriors with ironclad bodies, forged through countless battles into formidable fighters of exceptional caliber. As for the Hua-Ing Corps of Maple Leaf City, there's even less to be said. Though numbering only 30,000, their combat strength was absolutely on par with the Heavenly Guardian Legion. These were ninjas, wielding powerful ninjutsu, excelling in single combat, and operating with perfect teamwork. How could the foolish Beast tribes ever compare? Then there was the Phoenix City Corps, composed entirely of mighty mages, each capable of devastating entire areas. With 50,000 gathered together, even if each one cast a single fireball, it would be enough to burn down the entire southern forest. Such a formidable force gathered in one place truly seemed invincible, cutting through all obstacles and winning every battle. The main battlefield was at the northern edge of the forest near Heavenly Emperor City, the first line of defense after the seal. Now fully assembled with human warriors, the cavalry stood in perfect formation, ready to charge at the enemy's appearance. Behind them were tens of thousands of archers, bows drawn and arrows nocked, waiting for the beasts to become their targets. Nearby, tens of thousands of ninjas lay hidden. Several dozen miles further back, countless mages awaited to provide reinforcements. Should the first line of defense be breached, a second and third line could immediately be formed. With such an arrangement, who could break through? Any enemy coming would meet their demise, let alone the brainless Beast tribes. And yet, this time, the three great city lords made a grave mistake, a mistake so significant that it plunged the three nations' people into unprecedented peril. Nearly 100 million citizens inside and outside the three nations were almost entirely wiped out. Stay tuned for the next chapter, the Overlord's crushing defeat. Chapter 12, the Overlord's crushing defeat. The Beast tribe unexpectedly attacked the human race. Was it an accident or a deliberate scheme? Now, with the two armies facing off, which side is stronger, and which is weaker? At the edge of Celestial Star Forest, a defensive line formed by hundreds of thousands of powerful human warriors silently awaited the arrival of the Beast tribe's grand army. The three monarchs, evidently brimming with confidence, leisurely sipped tea and chatted. After all, they were veterans who had fought the Beast tribe before and harbored a deep-seated disdain for the so-called brainless beasts. Within Celestial Star Forest, atop a towering tree that pierced the skies, two figures in white stood. Kevin Schuyler frowned slightly. This time, it seemed the Beast tribe was not as simple as before. Rumors had it that the Beast tribe's combat style was always chaotic, but now, that didn't seem to be the case. Their formations were orderly and disciplined, with no signs of the usual intertribal conflicts. Under the command of their leader, they could rival the human army. Giant flying beasts hovered above in silence, in perfect formation, and there were even traces of magical arrays. Was this truly the beast tribe? The legendary beasts, known for their physical prowess and simple minds, was that just a myth? Just as Kevin Schuyler secretly worried about their position being exposed, a long, resonant call echoed through the air. It sounded like a mix between a phoenix's cry and a wolf's howl, ethereal and haunting. What shocked Kevin Schuyler even more was that, upon hearing the sound, all the beasts immediately halted. The stomping of their feet stirred up thick fog, enveloping the entire land and sky, and then they stood motionless. Silent. Perfectly still. Hannah Sterling stared wide-eyed at the scene, her luscious red lips forming an O. Kevin Schuyler knew, this time, the beast tribe was acting unusually. In the hours that followed, the beast army remained utterly motionless. Moments ago, they had descended like stars falling from the heavens, shaking the earth with their presence. Now, they were like a tranquil lake, devoid of even the slightest ripple. Faced with this situation, even someone as clever as Kevin Schuyler couldn't make sense of what was happening. In the southern part of the island, far out at sea, a sudden storm filled the horizon with dark shadows rapidly advancing toward the shore. Fishermen near the coast, sensing the overwhelming force of the approaching waves, quickly retreated. The shadows brought towering waves, nearly 5 meters high, crashing down. As it turned out, these were countless wooden rafts, though calling them rafts was generous, as they were merely a few wooden poles tied together. On these makeshift vessels stood enormous beasts. In the skies above, flocks of birds filled the air, darkening the heavens over a vast expanse. The massive shadow enveloped the entire coastline, and all the coastal residents felt an immense pressure. The overwhelming aura, as if from an army of thousands, caused many to collapse in fear. Piercing alarm sirens echoed across the entirety of southern abyss. At the same time, identical sharp alarms blared from the eastern and western coasts. The city lords, upon receiving the news, were thunderstruck, their faces turning pale. What was happening? A sea-based attack by the demon race? And they even knew how to sail? Stunned, shocked, utterly bewildered, it took a long moment before the 3 city lords regained their senses. They immediately issued orders, deploying 2/3 of the air force and 1/3 of the ground forces to intercept the attacking demon race from all directions. Each of the 3 city lords led their personal guards to defend a specific sector. Simultaneously, orders were given for coastal residents to retreat into the cities, activating the highest level of defense and initiating absolute protection protocols. The gates of Heavenly Emperor City suddenly opened, and a powerful protective shield rose, enveloping the massive gates. A colossal orb of light emerged, crackling with lightning. The city walls automatically extended 3 meters higher. Outside the city, tens of thousands of demons swarmed into coastal towns, wreaking havoc everywhere. Those capable of resisting were summoned to the royal palace, while the rest were mercilessly slaughtered. Terrified screams echoed across the land, smoke and flames rose into the sky, and rivers of blood flowed. At this moment, everyone was desperately fleeing for their lives. The demon race, however, coordinated with precision, killers killed, wallbreakers broke walls, executing their tasks without the slightest chaos. As the coastal towns had never faced such a threat, they lacked any defensive forces. Confronted with the demon army, the human race instantly became helpless prey, left at the mercy of the invaders. Corpses were scattered everywhere, mutilated bodies, blood flowing in torrents, rivers of blood, and a blazing inferno engulfing the skies. Faced with humanity, which had no means to resist, the Northern Beast Army showed no mercy, slaughtering indiscriminately. At this moment, however, a long howl echoed from within the Northern Beast Army. Immediately, all the beasts turned around and swiftly retreated, moving like a storm, vanishing as quickly as lightning. What was the meaning of this? The 3 commanders were stunned, and decision-makers from various nations exchanged puzzled glances. What was happening this time? Were they being toyed with by a group of beasts? Nevertheless, being seasoned commanders, they quickly regained composure and analyzed the situation thoroughly. They decided to deploy half of their forces to the coastal regions. However, just as these reinforcements were halfway to their destination, the northern beast army returned, this time launching a direct and merciless assault. Massive beasts with thick hides and immense strength stood at the forefront, while agile flying creatures formed formations in the skies to confront the human air force. A colossal battle was about to erupt. Overlord Victor King, sitting high on the back of his steed, O Trui, raised the sky-piercer halberd and roared, "Whoever dares to invade my borders shall be killed without mercy." Victor King, a battle king-level warrior, unleashed a shout so powerful it scattered the clouds above. With a light wave of his command flag, the sounds of war drums and charging horns resounded. Countless flying swords soared through the skies. The human warriors were no pushovers, each of them, clad in green armor, was stronger than the ferocious beasts. With their spears wielded, they flung massive mammoths as large as mountains into the air, before slaying them. The terrifying Heavenly Guardian Legion was fearless against the beast army, each soldier fought like a war god, cutting down their foes. The ninjas were even more agile, their concealed weapons drenched in blood within moments. Their devastating ninjutsu dominated the battlefield, unleashing fire, water, and earth-based attacks. Massive forbidden spells were also cast, transforming vast areas into desolate wastelands. The mages in the rear proved even more formidable, raining down wind blades, ice spears, and colossal fireballs like hailstones from the heavens. They also provided powerful magical shields for the warriors, preventing the beasts from getting close. However, the sheer number of the beast army was overwhelming, there was no end to them. Moreover, there were venomous creatures whose poison guaranteed death upon contact, as well as beast kings who wreaked havoc over hundreds of miles, unstoppable. Thus, a full-scale war erupted, plunging the entire island nation into flames and chaos, with no place spared from conflict. Meanwhile, Kevin Schuyler found himself in a rare moment of peace. With the beast army heading south, no one paid him any attention. Following Hannah Sterling's advice, Kevin decided to head north, aiming to enter the territory of the Elven clan. It was said that the Wu clan and the Elven clan shared a common ancestry and had a strong bond. While the beast army was engaged in battle, the celestial star forest, known for its mystique and peril, was eerily quiet, not even an ant could be seen. This sent chills down Kevin Schuyler's spine, making him secretly worry about Luna's safety. Could Uncle Michael Carter protect Luna properly? What if little Bumpkin was trampled by the beast army? Kevin Schuyler anxiously looked toward the distant battlefield, where the sounds of slaughter echoed in the skies. Shaking his head helplessly, he realized that returning would be futile, he lacked the strength to make a difference. It became clear that he needed to grow stronger. If he couldn't protect those around him, wouldn't he be forced to watch them drift away? As Kevin Schuyler and Hannah Sterling ventured into the mysterious and dangerous celestial star forest, their goal was to reach the Elven clan. However, the forest was vast and boundless. When would the two of them ever arrive? Chapter 13, Absolute Defense. Kevin Schuyler led Hannah Sterling into the depths of the celestial star forest, where countless towering trees grew densely together. The forest was eerily quiet, shrouded in mist, with sunlight piercing through, creating magical beams of light. The two cautiously advanced, knowing this was far from a peaceful land. Kevin Schuyler was aware that the celestial star forest was vast and boundless, and finding the Elven clan would not be easy. A fast means of transportation was essential, but in this place, there wasn't even a single feather in sight. Where could they possibly find one? Wait, a feather? Kevin Schuyler's eyes lit up as he spotted a massive flying beast in the sky behind them, but his excitement quickly dimmed. Hannah Sterling seemed to read his thoughts and said, "Lure it here, I have my ways to tame it." Kevin Schuyler turned back, a faint smile appearing on his face, and nodded. Not long after, Kevin Schuyler darted swiftly from the treetops, with a massive winged dragon beast chasing close behind. Its wingspan stretched over 10 meters, and its sharp claws gleamed menacingly as it targeted the human youth who dared provoke it. When they reached a dense part of the forest, the youth suddenly stopped and turned around. The winged dragon beast continued its charge, its immense presence blowing away the surrounding trees, exuding a terrifying killing intent. Kevin Schuyler silently braced himself, acknowledging the creature's ferocity. Just as the winged dragon beast came within 10 meters above Kevin Schuyler's head, a clear and enchanting female voice rang out, "Heavenly enchantment, subdue." A massive light screen enveloped the winged dragon beast. Beside Kevin Schuyler, a graceful figure suddenly appeared, Hannah Sterling. Her hands formed seals as she pointed forward. The winged dragon beast struggled fiercely against the binding force, but the more it resisted, the tighter it was restrained. Eventually, it descended to the ground, ceasing its resistance. Hannah Sterling exhaled in relief and smiled at Kevin Schuyler. Overjoyed, Kevin Schuyler leapt up, pulling Hannah onto the winged dragon beast's back. Under the influence of Hannah Sterling's secret technique, the beast soared into the sky, carrying the two deeper into the forest. Experiencing flight for the first time, Kevin Schuyler's excitement was evident as his eyes sparkled, taking in the sights of the sky and earth. The strong wind buffeted them, causing them to sway slightly. Kevin Schuyler had no choice but to use the Lin Bing technique, creating a barrier to shield them from the wind. With the winged dragon beast, their speed was incomparable to before, covering hundreds of meters in mere moments. Moreover, the beast seemed unbothered by carrying the two small passengers, showing no signs of fatigue. Kevin Schuyler was most relieved that they hadn't encountered any stronger beasts along the way. It seemed the beasts of the celestial star forest had already mobilized elsewhere. However, this also deepened Kevin Schuyler's concern: could the human forces hold their ground? And would the Elven clan, as Hannah Sterling had mentioned, send reinforcements? After flying for nearly 3 days and nights, the two endured the harsh elements. Kevin Schuyler seemed unaffected, but Hannah Sterling struggled, though she persisted without stopping. Kevin Schuyler couldn't help but see her in a new light. Back in the celestial star forest during the seal, he had glimpsed her resilience. It appeared she was far from an ordinary, fragile woman. Kevin Schuyler mused to himself, and suddenly, his thoughts wandered to how soft and comfortable a woman's body could feel. Just as Kevin Schuyler's mind drifted, a massive sphere of light hurtled toward them, nearly striking the winged dragon beast. Fortunately, the beast reacted instinctively and dodged in time. Kevin Schuyler squinted into the distance. About 1,000 meters ahead, an elderly man in white robes stood holding the staff of divinity. His lips moved in a chant, and his left hand continuously formed seals. "You vile old man, how dare you try to harm me?" Kevin Schuyler exclaimed as Heavenborn Feng unsheathed itself in response. He sensed that this elder was no ordinary figure. Meanwhile, Hannah Sterling stared wide-eyed at the man ahead, seemingly in disbelief. "Do you know him?" Kevin Schuyler asked. Before long, the two landed in front of the elder. Kevin Schuyler remained on high alert, while behind him, Hannah Sterling's body trembled. "Why? Why is it like this?" Her once strong voice now quivered. The elder stopped forming seals and opened his eyes, which radiated a blue glow. Kevin Schuyler stepped forward to confront him directly, exuding a powerful killing intent. It felt as though he had been thrown into the depths of the ocean, unable to move, yet he fiercely resisted. The vortex in his mind spun wildly, with Lin Bing rapidly absorbing energy. Gritting his teeth, Kevin Schuyler growled, "You damned old man. Is this how you greet people? What do you want?" As the vortex in his mind reached a certain speed, Kevin Schuyler finally felt some relief, while the elder stood there, stunned. Despite being a mid to high-level magic practitioner, the elder hadn't expected a mere youth to withstand him. It was as if he had seen a ghost. Unable to hold back any longer, Hannah Sterling rushed forward, clutching the elder's white robes tightly. "Why? Why is it like this?" she cried. The elder flung her hands aside forcefully. "You are nothing but a burden of mine. For the sake of the greater cause, sacrificing a useless vase like you is hardly a loss." Hannah's eyes filled with despair. "So, all of this was orchestrated by you?" "That's right. I caused your seal to fail. But I don't have the power to mobilize tens of thousands of beast tribe soldiers on my own. Kevin Schuyler, standing nearby, instantly grasped the entire situation. Rage surged within him as he gripped the heaven-born Feng tightly. Cry, you useless fool. Inheriting the Wu clan's bloodline is a sacred duty, and you're utterly unworthy. Your existence is meaningless. From childhood to now, all you've ever done is cry. Only I am the true heir of the Wu clan, destined to inherit the legacy of the Wu god and restore the clan's former glory. Although Kevin Schuyler didn't fully understand the relationship between these two individuals, at this moment, he cared little for such details. He was certain this war had something to do with that despicable old man. Kevin Schuyler leapt forward, his powerful blade aimed directly at the elder. No. Hannah Sterling suddenly soared upward, intercepting Kevin Schuyler's fierce strike. Although Kevin Schuyler restrained himself at the last moment, part of the blow still struck Hannah Sterling. Her graceful figure, alluring and elegant, was mercilessly thrown to the ground. Her pure white robe was stained crimson with blood, and her breathtakingly beautiful face displayed a serene expression of release as she coughed up fresh blood. Kevin Schuyler cradled Hannah in his arms, while a glint of malice flickered in the old man's eyes, quickly replaced by a subtle hint of satisfaction. Humph, foolish woman. Kevin Schuyler channeled his immense spiritual energy through his hand into Hannah's body, attempting to resonate with the violet energy sphere to heal her severe injuries. At the same time, he swiftly took to the skies, wary of a potential attack from the elder. Yet, the old man showed no intention of pursuing them. Kevin Schuyler had already guessed the reason. He was guarding something there and couldn't leave easily. However, Hannah Sterling's body seemed to harbor a deeper wound, one that affected her very soul and couldn't be healed through physical means. Out of options, Kevin Schuyler gently laid her down. Hannah Sterling smiled faintly, attempting to speak, but was overtaken by a fit of coughing, spitting up more blood. Kevin Schuyler's heart grew heavier. What was this situation? He had injured her, tried to help her solve her troubles, yet she had intervened to stop him? Could it be that the old man was her father? Or perhaps her father-in-law? He is my father, Hannah Sterling finally spoke. Kevin Schuyler, initially unsure if he'd heard correctly, replayed her words in his mind and widened his eyes in disbelief. Your father? A father who treats his daughter like that? Good thing I don't have a father, otherwise, I'd be doomed, Kevin Schuyler muttered awkwardly, his gaze evasive and sly, clearly trying to cover up his lie. Hannah shook her head. He wasn't like this before. He entrusted the clan to me. He was my faith and motivation. He placed his trust in me, wanting me to carry the mission of protecting the Wu clan in his stead. But why? Why would he be the one to destroy it with his own hands? Kevin Schuyler, exceptionally intelligent, had already pieced everything together from the moment he met the old man and noticed Hannah's strange expression. That old man was none other than the previous patriarch of the Wu clan, Sterling Kwang Fap, a member of the Sterling family's branch line. He had been exiled and mysteriously disappeared, leaving everything to his daughter, Hannah Sterling. In truth, he had colluded with the Beast clan, plotting to destroy the island. There were 2 points of suspicion. First, the Beast clan's unusual actions. There must be a special reason behind them. Was it connected to this old man? Second, with the island destroyed, what benefit did the old man gain? Was he truly loyal to the clan, or to some mysterious commander of the Beast clan? Now wasn't the time to dwell on such thoughts. Hannah was in grave danger. Kevin Schuyler furrowed his brows tightly. What should he do now? It was said that priestesses had the ability of self-rebirth. Did Hannah possess this power? When Kevin Schuyler asked this, Hannah looked at him with a complex expression. Kevin Schuyler quietly lowered his head. Was she blaming him for injuring her? After a long silence, just as Kevin Schuyler could hardly bear it anymore, Hannah slowly extended her delicate hand, gently placing it on his forehead. At that moment, Kevin Schuyler felt a strange sensation, as if dying for the woman before him would be worth it. Even Kevin Schuyler himself couldn't believe it. Was she planning to seal him, just as she had sealed the winged dragon beast? While Kevin Schuyler was lost in thought, Hannah had already transmitted a mysterious energy into his forehead. She said, "This is a witchcraft technique I created myself, reincarnation rebirth. In truth, I've surpassed my father. I only pretended not to know anything to avoid worrying him. In reality, he knew I was a rare genius of the Wu clan, but..." At this point, Hannah's sorrow deepened. Kevin Schuyler watched as her life force gradually faded, feeling utterly powerless. After a long while, he tightly embraced her increasingly lifeless, flawless body, daringly pressing his face against her stunningly beautiful one. A fierce sense of self-reproach surged within him. Kevin Schuyler couldn't help but feel maddened with hatred. What am I, really? What am I doing? Where is this place, truly? What is my mission? What is my faith? Someone, tell me, why did my attempt to save her end up harming her? In the end, Kevin Schuyler gazed into her kind eyes with a conflicted look. Finally, he experienced that feeling once more. He nodded, imprinting that sensation deep in his heart, and vowed to himself, this is what they call love. Bit by bit, it fades away, bit by bit, it disappears. The autumn wind sweeps the falling leaves. Are you the heartless one, or is it the tree that refuses to hold on? Why is it that only after losing something do we learn to cherish it? Hannah's body gradually transformed into starlight, merging with Kevin Schuyler's forehead. If possible, one day I will be reborn. I hope we can meet again. Before that, I want to give you something, to protect you in my stead. Hannah's final words echoed across the sky. Kevin Schuyler stared blankly at the empty ground, his face filled with confusion. He lacked faith, lacked purpose, drifting like a waterweed with no sense of home. Unable to protect the one he loved or the one who loved him, what meaning was there left in life? Ah! Kevin Schuyler roared toward the heavens, his cry shaking the earth. Suddenly, he soared into the air, his eyes bloodshot, his nails sharpening and lengthening, his fangs growing. In the distance, a void suddenly rippled, and a figure clad in black appeared, astonishment etched across their face. Their gaze fixed intently on the youth far away, their heart filled with questions. Kevin Schuyler understood now, he lacked faith. He had to protect the one who loved him and the one he loved. At that moment, as Kevin raged, a beam of white light erupted from his forehead, enveloping him in a 2-meter-wide luminous barrier. Gradually, Kevin calmed down, staring at the glowing shield. Is this what Hannah left for me? Absolute defense? It may protect my body, but can it protect my heart? Hannah? I think, this boy has fallen for you. Will we meet again? Kevin Schuyler slowly regained his composure, silently resolving to find the Elven clan and end this war. This was Hannah's destiny. That old man's power was immense, he wouldn't be easy to deal with. Moreover, whatever he was guarding must be even more terrifying, far beyond Kevin's current ability to confront. The only viable plan now was to seek reinforcements. With this in mind, Kevin turned and walked away. He needed to find that winged dragon beast again. In that quiet void, where emotions blossomed in a young man, lay the origins of a world. The world was vast, so vast. When would this youth grow strong enough to see through every corner of existence, to protect everyone he wished to protect? Would this world grant him peace to maintain, or would it challenge him with a great cleansing? Stay tuned for the next chapter, Immortal Clan. #### Chapter 14, Immortal Clan. Kevin Schuyler rode the flying beast for a full half-month before finally arriving at a desolate land. Here, it seemed even the sunlight was reluctant to shine. A gloomy wind swept endlessly across the terrain, with all plants dried and withered, leaving only sparse, lifeless trees. Skulls were scattered everywhere, some human, some belonging to magical beasts, and in some spots, eerie lights flickered intermittently. It was as if this land was a graveyard, burying a great emperor, silently narrating his past glory. Kevin Schuyler was certain he had taken a wrong turn. The Elven clan resided in dense ancient forests, so why would they be in such a barren place? Just as he was contemplating whether to change direction, he noticed a disturbance below. A small skull emerged from the ground, its hollow eye sockets glowing with a terrifying green light. It held a seemingly tattered bow, yet strangely, golden flames continuously emanated from it. The flames appeared as though they were from the underworld, exuding an enigmatic power. The creature looked around, appearing lost, but cautious, as if evading something. Kevin Schuyler, elated, leapt down with a loud boom, landing directly on the ground. Little Bone was carefully navigating the path when suddenly, he sensed a wave of murderous intent above his head. A figure descended directly from the sky, landing right in front of him. Bone Mask Holder was momentarily stunned and couldn't react in time. The young man respectfully bowed and said, "Excuse me, may I ask?" Kevin Schuyler hadn't even finished his sentence when Bone Mask Holder swiftly burrowed into the ground with a swoosh. Kevin Schuyler was utterly confused. "Do I look that intimidating?" "Hey, Little Bone, I'm not a bad person," he said in a reassuring tone. After much coaxing, Little Bone finally poked his head out cautiously. Kevin Schuyler quickly stepped forward and said, "Hello, I'm lost. Could you tell me where this place is?" Seeing that this person posed no threat, Little Bone emerged from the burrow. A childlike voice rang out, "Are you from a faraway place?" Kevin Schuyler was astonished to discover that this was a skeletal child. Yes, I just arrived," he replied. Little Bone giggled, his innocent, childish voice evoking a sense of pity. "It's been a long time since we've had visitors from afar," he said. After some conversation, Kevin Schuyler finally learned that this place was the legendary land of the Immortals, the territory of the Immortal Clan. Even more astonishing was the revelation that the Immortal Clan was embroiled in a civil war. The former ruler, the Immortal Emperor, had mysteriously vanished, and a faction led by the Sorcerer King had taken the opportunity to rebel, vying for the throne. Thus, a great war broke out between the loyalists supporting the Immortal Emperor and the rebels. Little Bone was the younger brother of Bone Tower King, a former general of the Immortal Emperor. After their homeland was devastated, Little Bone set out alone in search of his brother. Not long ago, he had been pursued by the rebels and had narrowly escaped by hiding in the cave. Kevin Schuyler let out a deep sigh. "Alas, war is always cruel. My name is Kevin Schuyler, a human. Do you know where the Elven clan is?" Little Bone shook its head and replied, "I don't know, but I heard my brother say that the Elven clan is near the Immortal clan's territory. If you find my brother, you'll surely know how to get to the Elven clan." Kevin Schuyler gently patted Little Bone. "You want me to help you find your brother, don't you?" Little Bone lowered its head. "It's very hard for me to find him alone. I don't even know where he is." "Don't worry, I'll help you find your brother." When Kevin Schuyler made a promise, he was determined to see it through, no matter the cost. Little Bone finally raised its head in joy, as if catching a glimmer of hope amidst the despair of war. "These are all my friends. They died in the war," Little Bone said, opening the bag on its back to reveal several skulls. Speaking of this, Little Bone lowered its head again. "War is always merciless, sparing no one, not even the uninvolved." Kevin Schuyler decided to find the Bone King first to clarify the directions before heading to the Elven clan. He hid his flying beast, took Little Bone along, and carefully navigated deeper into the heart of this land. The further they went, the more desolate it became. Many cities were engulfed in smoke and flames. From the massive structures, one could still see traces of their former glory. Black crows perched on crumbled city walls, uttering chilling cries, narrating the bygone prosperity. What is the purpose of war, after all? Why is everyone fighting for the Sorcerer King? What is their faith? As Kevin Schuyler pondered, a loud shout interrupted their path. A patrol team had discovered them, and on their flag, the large word "Sorcerer" was inscribed. Without hesitation, Kevin Schuyler pulled Little Bone and ran. A necromancer began chanting, sending a skull-shaped energy orb flying toward them. Just as Kevin Schuyler was about to counterattack, a massive energy sphere suddenly appeared. The 2-meter radius sphere easily blocked the necromancer's attack. Absolute defense? Kevin Schuyler halted, and heaven-born Feng unsheathed with a resonant sound. Lin Bing spun wildly, a fierce killing intent gathering along the blade. Spear of Wind. The small soldiers never expected this human to be so formidable. Unfortunately for them, it was too late. The powerful blade light split into 3 streams, mercilessly slicing through the group, leaving only 3 shallow grooves on the ground. Even Little Bone Skull appeared astonished. So, this person was truly that strong. This time, there might be hope in finding his elder brother. Kevin Schuyler quickly cleaned up the corpses of the small soldiers and moved even more stealthily. His earlier attack had been too swift. He should have captured one to inquire about the location of the Bone Skull King. Determined, Kevin Schuyler and Little Bone Skull deliberately sought out another patrol team. Suddenly, they leapt out from behind a boulder, slaying several executioner demons, leaving behind 2 undead mages. Speak. Where is the Bone Skull King? The undead mages, their eyes radiating a deadly aura, showed no fear. They raised their staffs of divinity, resolutely launching a final attack. Kevin Schuyler sighed and slit the mage's throat. It seemed impossible to extract any information from these small soldiers. You want to know where the Bone Skull King is? I can tell you. A flash of dark light appeared, and a seductive figure suddenly emerged beside Kevin Schuyler. If she had wanted to take his life, his head would already be rolling. Cold sweat dripped down Kevin Schuyler's back as the mysterious woman's overpowering aura pinned him in place. His mind raced, and the energy around him gradually came under his control, allowing him to regain some composure. Looking up at the woman, Kevin Schuyler saw her voluptuous figure draped in a black cloak that barely concealed her allure. Her ample chest revealed smooth, creamy skin, her slender waist was fully exposed, and beneath her shapely hips were long, graceful legs. Though her face was obscured by a mask, the gaps revealed a beauty that was almost otherworldly. Her bright eyes sparkled with an electrifying intensity. Kevin Schuyler froze, momentarily stunned. Kevin Schuyler, big brother. Little Bone Skull's voice snapped him out of his daze. The woman was already standing next to him, her faint, intoxicating fragrance filling the air. Hee hee, little handsome one, are you captivated by your big sister? She teased. Kevin Schuyler quickly composed himself. Women are dangerous, the thought flashed through his mind. He stepped back cautiously and said, Greetings, my name is Kevin Schuyler. May I ask if you know the whereabouts of the Bone Skull King? To mask his embarrassment, Kevin Schuyler bowed his head. The Queen of Torment smiled as she noticed the young man blushing from her playful remark. What's wrong? Am I not beautiful enough? Why are you so scared? Big sister doesn't eat people, she said with a chuckle. Kevin Schuyler finally regained his calm, though he couldn't understand why he, usually so composed, was acting this way today. Kevin Schuyler looked up, bowed slightly, and said, Elder sister, you are indeed very beautiful, but I urgently need to find the Skeleton King. Please tell me his whereabouts. The Queen of Pain frowned. Why are you looking for the Skeleton King? Kevin Schuyler observed the expression of the woman in front of him and boldly replied, I want to kill him. He is my enemy. Little Bone looked at Kevin Schuyler in astonishment, her eyes full of confusion. Kevin Schuyler, brother? You. Kevin Schuyler quickly covered Little Bone's mouth and said, This is the younger brother of the Skeleton King. I intend to use him as leverage to force the Skeleton King to accept his fate. Little Bone's eyes welled up with tears, but her body was tightly restrained by Kevin Schuyler. Hee hee. The Queen of Pain let out a seductive laugh. I see. Follow me, and I'll lead you to the Skeleton King. Kevin Schuyler finally breathed a sigh of relief and whispered into Little Bone's ear, Don't cry, Little Bone. We're just tricking this woman so she'll take us to your elder brother. Little Bone, recovering from her sorrow, asked, Really? Kevin Schuyler looked at the woman, then back at Little Bone, and firmly patted his chest. I promised you, and I will keep my word. Seeing the determination in Kevin Schuyler's eyes, Little Bone realized she had misunderstood, and the two followed the Queen of Pain into the undead army's camp. May I ask for your name, elder sister? Kevin Schuyler struck up a conversation with the woman. Oh my, such a sweet tongue. My name is Akasha, but everyone calls me the Queen of Pain. Another seductive laugh escaped her lips, almost making Kevin Schuyler lose his composure. Hearing this, Little Bone's body suddenly trembled, her eyes filled with fear. Kevin Schuyler patted her shoulder, signaling her to stay calm. Elder sister, someone as beautiful as you shouldn't be called the Queen of Pain. I think the title Queen of Elf suits you better. The Queen of Pain, hearing such flattery from this young man, felt a hint of delight in her heart. Yet, he had no idea about her merciless, bloodthirsty nature. If he did, would he still dare to call her elder sister so boldly? Thinking of this, the Queen of Pain raised her head to gaze at the sky, lost in thought as she walked ahead. Kevin Schuyler noticed this and realized that this beautiful woman also had her own burdens. He chose not to disturb her. They arrived at a flat expanse of land, where the vast undead army's camp stretched endlessly. Kevin Schuyler followed the Queen of Pain to the front lines of the army. In the distance, he saw a massive skull floating in midair. Brother! Little Bone immediately recognized it as the banner of her elder brother, the Skeleton King. Her eyes filled with tears as she tried to rush forward, but Kevin Schuyler quickly held her back, smiling at the surrounding soldiers to ease the tense atmosphere. The Queen of Pain pointed ahead and said, "That's the Skeleton King's camp. We're currently at war with him. The next battle is set for tomorrow night. Do you have any plans?" Kevin Schuyler excitedly replied, "Perfect. I'll take my revenge now." With that, he dragged Little Bone and started running. Clang! Dozens of sharp spears were instantly pointed at Kevin Schuyler. Remaining calm, Kevin Schuyler looked at the Queen of Pain and said, "I humbly request the Queen to allow us to pass." The Queen gently patted Kevin Schuyler's head. "You reckless brat, that's a military camp with tens of thousands of soldiers. How do you plan to seek revenge? Are you going there to die?" The soldiers around, seeing the Demon Queen, known as the Ruthless Queen of Pain, someone who usually kills without hesitation, showing such tenderness toward this young man, couldn't help but admire Kevin Schuyler even more. Indeed, this was their leader. Don't be fooled by her usual cheerful demeanor. On the battlefield, just one angry roar from her could claim hundreds of lives. Moreover, any man who dared to glance at her a few times too many would often find himself struck by a green poisonous dart, dying without even knowing how it happened. Kevin Schuyler let out a casual "oh," and said, "Then tomorrow night, I'll charge forward with all of you." The Queen of Pain looked at the young man with a sorrowful expression. Such a good lad, would he also have to perish in this ravine filled with countless lives? All right, rest assured. Tomorrow night, I'll send someone to fetch you. Kevin Schuyler and Little Bone Skull were arranged to stay in a small tent, guarded by over a dozen soldiers. This was to ensure that the younger brother of the Bone Skull King wouldn't escape. Kevin Schuyler even pretended to tie Little Bone Skull up, declaring that there was absolutely no way he could run away. In the middle of the night, the moon shone especially brightly over this desolate land, as if it were the deity upon which this land relied for survival, illuminating every corner. Kevin Schuyler and Little Bone Skull sat quietly in the tent. Little Bone Skull asked, "Brother Kevin Schuyler, how will we find Brother Bone Skull tomorrow?" Kevin Schuyler gestured for Little Bone Skull to lower his voice and replied, "Tomorrow, they will definitely use you as a hostage. Your brother will surely know you're here. So as long as I cooperate with your brother, we'll be able to rescue you successfully. Just remember, once someone comes to save you, run with them as fast as you can. Don't look back, no matter what." "Brother Kevin Schuyler, what about you?" "I'll be fine. I'm very strong, they can't kill me." Under Kevin Schuyler's comforting words, Little Skeleton finally drifted off to sleep. The next day, sunlight once again bathed the earth, bringing light to this dark land. Yet, it seemed that all the undead despised the sunlight, they gazed at the life-giving rays from above with disdain. The Queen of Torment sent several attendants to serve Kevin Schuyler. After bathing, changing into his military uniform, and wearing the noble ring gifted by the Queen of Torment along with 2 exquisitely crafted wristbands, Kevin Schuyler's handsome demeanor made the attendants' eyes sparkle. Initially, the dust on his face had obscured his features, but now even little Skeleton praised, "Brother, you're so handsome." Kevin Schuyler chuckled, "Really? Compared to your Skeleton King brother, who's more handsome?" "The Skeleton King brother is still a bit more handsome," Little Skeleton replied. Kevin Schuyler lightly knocked on Little Skeleton's head and said, "You're biased." "Indeed, a budding young man. I didn't notice it yesterday, but it turns out you're a fine young gentleman," the Queen of Torment's voice echoed from outside. Kevin Schuyler clasped his hands together and greeted, "Good day, sister." Under the astonished gazes of the attendants, the Queen of Torment looked Kevin Schuyler up and down with satisfaction and said, "Such a handsome boy, why not stay here and keep me company instead of going off to battle?" "Ah!" Kevin Schuyler exclaimed, "No, no, no. The Skeleton King is the enemy who killed my parents and destroyed my homeland. I must kill him." "Very well, follow me," the Queen of Torment said. Her expression suddenly turned serious. Kevin Schuyler glanced at Little Skeleton, signaling him not to wander off, and then followed the Queen of Torment to a cliff. The fierce winds here carried a breath of death, causing their clothes to flutter wildly. Kevin Schuyler kept close to the Queen of Torment's steps. Suddenly, she stopped, turned around, and asked, "Kevin Schuyler, what is it you truly seek from the Skeleton King?" "Ah," Kevin Schuyler gazed at the intricate mask, those sparkling eyes that seemed to see through everything. Kevin Schuyler knew he could no longer hide the truth. When had she seen through him? Kevin Schuyler said, "That little Bone Tower is indeed his younger brother. I want to take him to Bone Tower King." The tortured queen's expression immediately turned stern, and an intense killing intent enveloped the entire sky and earth. Kevin Schuyler once again felt the suffocating threat of death, just like that day. "But, sister, I won't help the Bone Tower King in any battles. Once I deliver Little Bone, I'll leave this land. Is that all right?" The tortured queen's expression faltered slightly. She turned her head to look into the distance, where a massive mountain loomed, its peak shrouded in mist and clouds. "Kevin Schuyler, do you know? In truth, I don't want to fight either." "Ah, you don't like it? Then why?" "Fate. Do you understand? It's all because of that mountain over there." Kevin Schuyler looked at the distant mountain. Something seemed to glimmer faintly at its summit. That was the Frozen Throne, the seat of the immortal heavenly emperor of the previous era. "Because of that throne, countless people die every day, including my family and sisters," the tortured queen said, her voice tinged with sorrow, her eyes seemingly clouded with mist. Kevin Schuyler stared in astonishment at the woman before him. So, the tortured queen was once an elf of the elven clan, but she had been killed by the sorrow of frost and resurrected by the Witch King. That was why she now had this form. She wanted her anguished screams to be eternally remembered, to etch the pain of war into history. "Sister, if this war is only for one person's ambition, then why don't you rebel?" The tortured queen shook her head and said, "This world will never have peace. Even if there's temporary stability, it's merely preparation for the next war. True peace will never come." "No, sister, I believe that true peace exists everywhere. True peace lies within the heart. If everyone strives for peace, then the people of this world will understand one another and step into an era of harmony together." The tortured queen looked helplessly at the young man before her. "You're still too young." "Sister, I may be young, but if peace exists, I will grasp it tightly and protect it with my life. Just watch, sister, I will bring true peace to this land." A resolute belief surged from the depths of Kevin Schuyler's heart. Even he couldn't understand why he felt so certain, so confident. The Queen of Sorrow gazed at the young boy, staring in awe. It felt as though they had known each other before, as though she had always been by his side. After a long moment, she gently kissed his youthful, exquisitely handsome face, brimming with innocence and determination. "This is your promise?" You must swear to me that you will bring eternal peace to the beings of this land. Yes, Kevin Schuyler swears upon his life to fulfill this promise, to tirelessly strive for peace in this land. That unexpected kiss only deepened the boy's resolve. The Queen of Sorrow turned her head and let out a piercing scream toward the heavens. Her sharp cry sliced through the wind, reaching far and wide, causing all beings to tremble and echoing across the skies. The terrifying ripples of her scream shook the very ground beneath them. At that moment, the sound etched itself deeply into the young boy's heart. Whether it was a fleeting impulse, the allure of her beauty, or the naivety of youth, the desire to bring peace to the world began to take root within Kevin Schuyler. This future demon king would one day bring peace to this world and instigate monumental changes. Yet, on this path, a cruel curse would claim the lives of those closest to him, one by one. Young one, are you ready? Stay tuned for the next chapter, The Last Will of the Immortal Heavenly Emperor. Hashtag Chapter 15, The Legacy of the Immortal Heavenly Emperor. The next afternoon, a suffocating atmosphere enveloped the land. On the vast plains stretched an endless army. The sky was an unusual shade of gray, as if it could collapse at any moment. Fierce winds whipped the flags atop the flagpoles, heralding the imminent outbreak of war. Tens of thousands of soldiers from both sides had gathered on this plain. Kevin Schuyler rode a skeletal warhorse, positioned at the rear of the formation. Sitting just ahead of him was Little Bone. Both were tense. This was Kevin Schuyler's first time witnessing such a grand spectacle. From afar, massive skulls floated in the air, while rows upon rows of skeletal warriors stood in perfect formation. Their hollow eyes stared blankly forward, as if death held no meaning for them. Their only purpose was to obey the orders of their leader, their only sound the blaring of the war horn. Yet, they were still living beings, creatures of this earth. The green flames flickering within the skulls proved they were not merely lifeless, insentient objects. On the other side, the ranks of undead knights stood in orderly lines, raising their longswords high. Each wore a mask, and their ever-flickering eyes betrayed no emotion. The silence was eerie, whether in the front or the rear, there was no noise. Despite the presence of countless soldiers, not a single sound could be heard. Thus, everyone quietly listened, to the wind, to the earth, to the heavens. It was as if they were savoring the final rays of sunlight. What, ultimately, is war for? As the commander-in-chief, could he see the helplessness of countless lives on the battlefield? While devising strategies, did he ever offer them a solemn bow? The wind continued to howl, smoke filled the air, and the stillness of the countless troops finally ended. With the blast of the war horn, thousands of war drums thundered in unison, their deafening roar like that of a primordial beast howling at the sky. Everyone seemed to come alive, raising their heads in pride, their eyes fixed unwaveringly on the battle standard ahead. They brandished their weapons, awaiting the final command. Charge! A simple command of 2 words, spoken without elaboration, was like a shooting star streaking across the night sky, briefly fleeting, yet brilliantly radiant. The cavalry let out earth-shaking roars, urging their warhorses forward. Like a crimson flood, they surged ahead, waves rising and foam crashing. The ground trembled, the heavens quaked. Kevin Schuyler silently watched as the black-armored soldiers swept past him. He stood stunned, feeling an overwhelming surge of strength within him, a strange courage calling out to him, "Go forth, young man, charge ahead." It was as if his body was about to join this crimson tide. Turning to look at the Queen of Sorrow, her eyes had regained their former coldness, like lightning piercing through every corner. Kevin Schuyler waited for the Queen's command. At this moment, he could not act on his own. Little Bone stared blankly at the tens of thousands of troops clashing before his eyes. The familiar skulls in the distance roared ferociously, causing his body to tremble. Even as a general who had faced countless life-and-death battles, he could not help but feel shaken by the sight. When the two tides collided, was it the fragility of life or the cruelty of war? The heavens and earth changed color, and the land fell silent. Kevin Schuyler could hear no sound, see no color, only the glimmer of countless swords and blades flashing like the final radiance of life. They seemed to narrate the blood and tears that would stain tomorrow's history. Was this truly his destiny? Was this truly his dream? Boom! A signal flare exploded in the sky. Kevin Schuyler drew his heaven-born Fong, letting out a loud shout as he resolutely charged forward. He had no intention of slaughtering anyone, but how could he avoid it? A bone knight raised its battle axe and swung it fiercely at Kevin Schuyler's heaven-born Fong. Struggling, Kevin blocked the strike with both hands, counterattacking with a single slash that severed a skull. The little bone knight, clinging tightly to Kevin Schuyler, grew even more terrified, gripping him with trembling hands. A fierce golden flame ignited on the bow in its hands, but Kevin had no time to pay attention. Dodging weapons with all his might, he pressed onward. He had only one goal, the distant skull in the middle of the battlefield. The battlefield was engulfed in raging flames, smoke billowing everywhere, and corpses littering the ground. Kevin Schuyler, channeling his inner strength, exuded an overwhelming aura as he pushed through the Bone Warriors. At last, he caught sight of the Bone King's central command. "Commander, there's a young man in white armor ahead holding a little bone knight," someone reported. The Bone King froze upon hearing this. His sharp, cold eyes pierced through the void, locking onto Kevin Schuyler. "It's him. It really is him," the Bone King murmured, his voice steady yet betraying a hint of astonishment and delight. "Send the order, capture the young man in white alive and rescue the young master." Typically calm, the Bone King roared the command. The mages unleashed powerful signals, and most of the soldiers began closing in on Kevin Schuyler. Kevin was growing increasingly fatigued. Though the Bone King loomed in sight, he couldn't get closer. In desperation, he shouted, "Bone King! Come out and fight me. Your younger brother is in my hands. If you have the guts, face me in battle." Kevin's commanding voice resonated across the central command. The Bone King let out a cold laugh and leapt into the air, landing directly in front of Kevin Schuyler. "Damn it!" Kevin cursed as the Bone King descended from the sky. He yanked on his warhorse's reins, narrowly avoiding a collision. Regaining his composure, he finally got a clear look. Before him stood a towering skeleton nearly 3 meters tall, crowned with a golden crown. In its right hand, it wielded a milky white bone blade, in its left, it held a shield adorned with a skull emblem. A majestic, regal aura radiated from the Bone King, and his blood-red eyes glowed far more intensely than those of the little bone knight. Upon closer inspection, Kevin noticed ancient engravings on the Bone King's skull, some kind of archaic markings. Kevin couldn't help but feel astonished. As expected, this was indeed the Bone King. "Brother, brother," Little Bone, upon seeing his brother in front of him, charged forward recklessly. Kevin Schuyler hurriedly restrained him. There were numerous soldiers of the Queen surrounding them, and if Little Bone rushed ahead like that, both he and Kevin Schuyler would likely be deemed rebels and executed on the spot. Kevin Schuyler pointed his heaven-born Fong directly at the Bone Skull King. "You are the Bone Skull King." The Bone Skull King seemed not to hear Kevin Schuyler's words, his gaze filled with deep affection as he looked at Little Bone. Eyes that should have been devoid of emotion now shimmered with a profound tenderness. Suddenly, the Bone Skull King turned his hawk-like eyes to Kevin Schuyler, and an overwhelming killing intent surged toward him. The soldiers nearby were pushed back by the sheer force of it, leaving a 2-meter radius clear around him. A deafening roar erupted from the Bone Skull King's mouth as he leaped into the air, his massive bone blade descending directly toward Kevin Schuyler's head. "Do you no longer care about your brother's life?" Kevin Schuyler Ming Tai Noi and hung than the Lai Han Dong Nu Tia Chop, Tai Tuk Luk Kong Man, and hung Tok Du Fan Qua Tuk Kin Nuoi, Kio Little Bone Trong Nai Mat Roy Koi Chien Ma, Bone Skull King Kem Hut, Chien Ma by Kem Ton Man No, Bo Jiap Dai Kop Dui Kot Dao Qua Bone Skull King Kong Chiu. Rising in a burst of energy, Kevin Schuyler grabbed Little Bone with one hand and wielded the heaven-born Fong with the other. As soon as he landed, he swiftly retreated, countering the Bone Skull King with a strike. He knew that remaining unscathed would be an insult to the Queen, he could only hope the Bone Skull King wouldn't unleash his full strength. Lin Bing spun wildly, channeling the essence within Kevin Schuyler's body. A powerful force surged through the heaven-born Fong, striking the Bone Skull King's head. The Bone Skull King was secretly astonished. This seemingly reckless youth had some skill after all. Boom! The Bone Skull King brutally parried the blow, crushing the ground behind him. Wind Spear. Kevin Schuyler slashed at the Bone Skull King's head, then spun to deliver another strike. 3 massive blades of energy surged toward the Bone Skull King. The red-gold aura of the blades radiated a deadly brilliance, but the Bone Skull King disdainfully raised his left hand. Bang! The energy blades collided with the shield but did not shatter. The force halted abruptly, merely forcing the Bone Skull King to take a few steps back. Kevin Schuyler refused to give his opponent any chance to recover. However, the Bone Skull King was too powerful. Kevin had no choice but to rely on Little Bone to restrict his movements. Closing the distance, the two clashed immediately. Each strike from the Bone Skull King sent numbness through Kevin's arms, every blow carrying a lethal intent. Kevin was inwardly alarmed. This was indeed a seasoned war general, leagues beyond his own level. If not for his quick reflexes and ability to block with sheer speed, he couldn't imagine how dire his situation would be. Bone Skull King grew increasingly surprised as the fight went on. Though Kevin was on the defensive, he seemed to anticipate every angle of attack, managing to block each one. Yet Kevin was far from comfortable. His arms were numb from the relentless strikes. Continuing to endure like this was not a viable solution. Ah! Kevin roared, recklessly taking a hit to deliver an elbow strike to the Bone Skull King's chest. The Bone Skull King dodged to the side, but Kevin wasn't about to let the opportunity slip. Missing the first strike, he spun to deliver a kick. The Bone Skull King leaped into the air, his massive skeletal form casting a dark shadow that completely engulfed Kevin. The two clashed for dozens of rounds. Finally, Kevin's hands trembled, and the Bone Skull King delivered a powerful kick to the heaven-born Fong. Kevin was sent flying into the air, his chest searing with pain, his breath labored. Suddenly, a metallic tang filled his mouth. Pfft! A large mouthful of blood sprayed out as Kevin collapsed to the ground, powerless. The Bone Skull King seized the opportunity to snatch Little Bone, leaving Kevin with nothing but hollow, expressionless eye sockets staring back at him. Little Bone leaned against the Bone Skull King's back, murmuring something. Though the Bone Skull King's face showed no emotion, he continued to stare at Kevin before signaling to those behind him, "Take him away." 2 skeletons dragged Kevin Schuyler away. The war raged on, the battlefield drenched in bloodshed. By now, most had lost their sanity, with no intention of retreating. They would rather leave their lives behind forever on this land. This was fate, this was faith. Central camp of the Bone Skull King. Kevin Schuyler was placed in a tent, narrow and simple, furnished only with a wooden bed and a few basic items. Several bone mages were ordered to tend to the prisoner's wounds. Why did the commander order us to treat this prisoner? And to treat him so well? This prisoner is so formidable. The commander surely wants to recruit him. In another tent, spacious and well-lit, filled with various tools, weapons, and command tokens, the Bone Skull King sat on his throne, attentively listening to his younger brother recount what had happened to their homeland and parents. After a long silence, his hollow eye sockets glimmered with an unusual light. The soul flames in his eyes burned far more fiercely than Little Bone's. Little Bone, having finally found his elder brother, was overjoyed. The arduous journey had left him utterly exhausted, and before long, he fell asleep on the Bone Skull King's throne. The Bone Skull King draped his cloak over him, his gaze filled with undisguised care. He reflected that he and his younger brother had rarely been together. By the time he had grown up, Little Bone had just been born. Now, his younger brother was the only family he had left. All his other relatives and comrades had perished in this war. Was this the cruelty of war, or his own helplessness? The Bone Skull King went to Kevin Schuyler's tent. Looking at the young man brimming with vitality, he felt both gratitude for saving his brother and amazement at his talent, so young yet already so capable and strategic. A true prodigy, though regrettably, not one he could use for his cause. Little Bone had told the Bone Skull King about Kevin Schuyler's promise. Kevin Schuyler would not interfere in this war. Currently, the battle between the two sides had reached a brutal stage, with a prolonged period of reorganization likely to follow. For now, no major actions would be taken. His territory was one of the main battlefields. The Eastern Chaos Knights and Western Harbingers of the Apocalypse were fighting to the death to defend the final domain of the immortal Celestial Emperor. This war would not end overnight, the two sides were evenly matched. Of the 108 spectral generals who once served under the immortal Celestial Emperor, some had scattered, some had fallen in battle, and others remained steadfast in their duties, protecting their faith. Although Kevin Schuyler was seriously injured, it was fundamentally not life-threatening. Thanks to the two purple light spheres, his wounds had almost healed by the time he was carried back. This left the two phantom mages even more perplexed, as it seemed impossible for the commander's heavy strike to leave him unscathed. Now awake, upon seeing the Bone Skull King arrive, he hurriedly got out of bed to pay his respects. Kevin Schuyler, greet your excellency, General, he said. This form of address was learned after consulting the two phantom mages, which is why he used it now. Bone Skull King nodded, his imposing aura so overwhelming that no one dared to look directly at him. The two skeletal mages, sensing the situation, wisely retreated outside. Are you from the human race? Yes, Kevin Schuyler replied, meeting the hollow eye sockets of Bone Skull King. Gradually, he calmed himself, and Bone Skull King, observing this, nodded silently in approval. What business do you have with the Elven clan? My homeland has been invaded by the Beast clan on a massive scale. A friend entrusted me to seek help from the Elven clan, to plead for the elves to save the human race. You mentioned that the Beast clan attacked the humans. As far as I know, the humans have developed at an astonishing pace, with numerous combat techniques and magic emerging one after another. Shouldn't they be more than capable of dealing with the Beast clan? Why would they need to seek aid from the Elven clan? Kevin Schuyler immediately voiced his concerns. Your Majesty may not know, but the Beast clan has changed. For reasons unknown, the once chaotic Beast clan has now become a powerful, well-organized army. What's more terrifying is that they've learned to use strategies, employing diversions and deceptions. It feels as though someone is orchestrating the entire Beast clan from behind the scenes. Every beast is now fighting with its full potential. The humans, once arrogant and overconfident, were caught off guard by the surprise attacks. Now, the humans are on the defensive. Though they may not face immediate extinction, this war could very well determine the survival of an entire race. Hearing Kevin Schuyler's explanation, Bone Skull King appeared puzzled. The Beast clan, once chaotic, has undergone such a transformation? I recall that before the disappearance of His Majesty the Immortal Emperor, he had visited the Beast clan. At this point, the two suddenly exchanged glances, shock evident in their eyes. Could it be that all of this, every event, every movement of hundreds of thousands of beings, was part of a grand scheme orchestrated by a single individual or a group? Hashtag Chapter 16, The Immortal Heavenly Emperor's Last Will, Middle. Bone Skull King was deeply shaken. Clearly, both of them had thought of the same thing, the Beast clan. This tribe, though possessing abundant combat power and strength, had long been underestimated by other races due to its poor leadership, chaotic fighting style, and severe internal conflicts. In the past, they dared not attack the human clan recklessly, primarily because of the looming threat of the Immortal clan behind them. However, this time, with internal strife breaking out within the Immortal clan, the Beast clan seized the opportunity to launch an assault on the human clan. Could this be a mere coincidence? Or had the Beast clan orchestrated the Immortal clan's internal turmoil to pave the way for their attack on the human clan? If it were the latter, then it was truly terrifying. Could this person aim to conquer the entire island, uniting the four clans in a single stroke? Or was there an even more sinister plot at play? What exactly was Hannah Sterling's father protecting? Was he somehow connected to this scheme? Bone Skull King revealed the location of the Elven clan to Kevin Schuyler. Bidding farewell to the little skeleton, Kevin could see the reluctance in its glowing eye sockets, shimmering with faint flames of emotion, despite its small face showing no discernible expression. Kevin Schuyler continued his journey, now equipped with a few additional items. Bone Skull King had gifted him 2 wrist guards and a pair of dynamic boots, which gleamed with magical energy, making his steps feel noticeably lighter. Ahead lay a vast, desolate expanse of land, seemingly characteristic of this race. Everywhere he looked, there was an oppressive aura of death. Even the sparse vegetation appeared lifeless, tainted by the terrifying death energy. Occasionally, he would come across massive skeletons, scattered torches, or nameless, deep chasms. In the distance, a fortress finally came into view. It resembled an elderly man in his twilight years, lying there powerless, its structure crumbling and even more desolate under the glow of the setting sun. It seems to be a fortress belonging to the Guardian Emperor faction, Kevin Schuyler deduced from the flag flying atop the fortress, which bore the insignia of the Immortal Emperor faction. The gate of the fortress had the name clearly inscribed, Kirin Fortress. The city gate was strictly guarded by soldiers, with very few people coming and going at this time. Kevin Schuyler arrived at the base of the walls, which towered nearly 10 meters high and stretched out to both sides. The gate itself, however, was quite small, no larger than a standard door. Halt! 2. Soldiers stepped forward to inspect him. Only after completing the registration process was Kevin Schuyler allowed entry. During wartime, inspections were often more stringent. It wasn't until nightfall that Kevin Schuyler finally entered the fortress. It was said that before the war broke out, Kirin City had been one of the most prosperous cities of the immortal race. But now, war had reduced it to a decrepit shadow of its former self. The once spacious streets were sparsely populated, and a desolate air hung over everything. Kevin Schuyler made his way to a tavern. Though the exterior seemed quiet and unassuming, the inside was packed with people. On a large stage, beautiful and alluring women of the immortal race performed mesmerizing dances, drawing all eyes. Below, groups of people gathered, occasionally breaking into applause. Despite being a tavern, the establishment also served food. Kevin Schuyler found a corner seat, ordered some food, and muttered to himself, "Should have asked that Bone Skull King for some extra support." Looking at the menu filled with expensive dishes, Kevin Schuyler grumbled under his breath. When the food arrived, it consisted of roasted chicken legs glistening with a thick layer of grease, their tantalizing aroma wafting faintly to Kevin Schuyler's nose. He took a deep breath, preparing to dig in, when suddenly, a small, filthy hand darted out from under the table and snatched one of the chicken legs right before his eyes, disappearing just as quickly. Kevin Schuyler glared down under the table and spotted a faint black shadow. The shadow seemed startled by Kevin Schuyler's reaction. Their eyes met for about 2 minutes, before Kevin Schuyler finally saw clearly, it was a little girl. Her hair was tied into 2 long braids, and her small, rosy face was so dirty it was hard to discern her features. Only her eyes stood out, like pebbles glimmering under water, exuding a mysterious black radiance. Yes, mysterious, that was the word. Kevin Schuyler felt there was something extraordinary about those eyes. He grabbed the little thief who dared to steal his food in broad daylight. Finally, getting a good look at her, he saw a girl of about 5 or 6 years old, dressed in what appeared to be a noble's robe. Could she have been a noble once? However, the robe was so filthy and tattered that it was barely recognizable. Kevin Schuyler smirked and playfully pinched her cheek, pretending to scold her. "You dare steal my food?" The little girl trembled all over, clutching the chicken leg tightly in one hand, her eyes brimming with tears. Her small, fair legs peeked out from beneath the robe. Upon closer inspection, Kevin Schuyler noticed her strikingly beautiful features. She must have been a noble lady in the past. How had she ended up like this? Big brother. I didn't mean to. She stammered. Kevin Schuyler chuckled inwardly and feigned surprise. What? You didn't mean to? Are you telling me this chicken leg accidentally flew into your hand? The girl grew even more frightened. Already struggling to speak clearly, she became even more flustered and incoherent. No, that's not. I was just too hungry. Kevin Schuyler looked at the little girl, who had a hard time forming a complete sentence. His heart softened as he placed the child on his lap, gently brushing her hair. He softly asked, "Where are your parents?" The child seemed to sense that Kevin Schuyler was no longer angry. Gradually, she relaxed and shook her head unconsciously, as though she didn't know who her parents were. Kevin Schuyler smiled. You don't know who your parents are either? Could it be that, like me, you woke up on a beach? The child thought for a moment and then nodded. Kevin Schuyler couldn't help but laugh. He handed her another chicken leg. Here, eat this. Anyway, I'm all alone. How about you come with me? Although Kevin Schuyler might have looked like a human trafficker at that moment, the child still earnestly nodded. Do you stutter? Kevin Schuyler recalled her earlier reaction and couldn't help but ask. The little one seemed unwilling to admit it. Who said I? I stutter. Kevin Schuyler patted his pocket, taking out the remaining gold coins, and smiled at the little girl. Luckily, the old man gave me some gold coins, otherwise, I might really have to live with this little one. The small tavern, though modest in size, was packed with people. In an area of less than 100 square meters, there were at least 200 patrons. On the stage, various songs, dances, and masked beauties from the immortal clan swayed their alluring waists, eliciting cheers from the crowd below. Suddenly, Kevin Schuyler's sharp intuition seemed to sense a shadow watching him, an open and blatant gaze. However, Kevin Schuyler couldn't pinpoint the observer in the darkness. Closing his eyes, the vortex above his head spun wildly, sensing every ripple of energy. It became clearer that there was indeed a pair of eyes in the shadow staring at him. Fortunately, those eyes carried no killing intent, only a quiet observation. Kevin Schuyler couldn't help but feel puzzled. His appearance might be handsome, but surely not to the extent of captivating someone at first glance. Kevin Schuyler quickly led the little girl out of the tavern. The troubling feeling persisted, as though under the constant gaze of a deity, with his life hanging by a thread. Despite several attempts, he couldn't locate the presence in the dark and eventually decided to ignore it. He took the little one shopping, bought her some clothes, and gave her a thorough bath. Finally, she transformed into a charming little girl with rosy cheeks, her long hair tied into 2 braids, reaching her waist. Each braid was messily fastened with a red ribbon, clearly tied by Kevin Schuyler himself. The little one's most striking feature was her lips, which seemed perpetually curved in an enchanting smile. On her right cheek, near the corner of her eye, was a faint mole that added to her lively charm. Her small hand clung tightly to Kevin Schuyler's sleeve, while the other hand held on to Heavenborn Fong. Strangely, the little one was very fond of the Heavenborn Fong, treating it like a treasured toy. She caressed and polished it, as though the pitch-black blade was merely a plaything in her hands. Interestingly, the blade itself was peculiar. Normally, it couldn't even cut through a small branch, but when wielded by Kevin Schuyler, it became a fearsome weapon of unmatched power. In the sweltering summer heat, Kevin Schuyler dressed the little one in a simple dress. Her tiny, fair legs were adorned with pink sandals. As for Kevin Schuyler, he wore a short-sleeved shirt and long pants, with Japanese-style wooden clogs that clattered with every step. His white martial artist shirt and ninja-style pants were specially designed to carry a variety of concealed weapons. As for the wooden clogs, the little one was particularly curious about them. Kevin Schuyler explained that they were practical. If an enemy appeared, he could throw them for a surprise attack. The Ghost Emperor has arrived. A clear voice echoed throughout the city. The gates opened, and a regiment of undead cavalry marched in perfect formation into the stronghold. Following them was a ceremonial procession, and then a palanquin about 3 meters tall appeared in view. The palanquin was draped with a thin veil, faintly revealing a figure seated upright inside. The figure's hands were forming seals, their entire body seemingly cloaked in black, with even their face concealed. Everyone immediately stepped aside, and some even knelt in reverence. In the eyes of a young girl, a strange glimmer seemed to flicker. Kevin Schuyler held the hand of the little one standing by the roadside. As the palanquin passed by Kevin Schuyler, he felt, perhaps it was an illusion, that the person inside suddenly opened their eyes, emitting a piercing light that seemed to penetrate his very soul. That light appeared to pierce the essence of the world, destroying all creation, reminiscent of the eyes watching Kevin Schuyler from the shadows, yet not entirely the same. Of course, the light seemed uninterested in Kevin Schuyler, merely glancing in his direction before retracting. The decree of the Ghost Emperor, the war between the royalist faction and the rebel faction has officially erupted. The entire Undying domain has become the battlefield. All warriors of the Immortal clan must follow the orders of the Undying Heavenly Emperor, strive to protect the inheritance, and revive the frozen throne. This stronghold is about to become a battleground. Those willing to fight, report to the Ministry of War. Those unwilling, find a place to hide. The once desolate stronghold suddenly became bustling with activity. Countless figures emerged from unknown corners, all appearing confused, their faces marked with despair, as though there was nothing left in the world worth clinging to. Kevin Schuyler silently clenched his fist, leapt a few times, and landed atop a city wall. Channeling the essence within his dantian, he shouted loudly, "The traitorous Sorcerer King has destroyed the legacy of the Undying Heavenly Emperor, plunging the world into darkness. We must fight to the death, to protect peace and resist the Sorcerer King." Everyone turned to look in his direction, but not a sound was heard. In their hearts, however, they all silently cursed, "Idiot." Then, they shook their heads and resumed whatever they were doing. Kevin Schuyler, seeing this scene, could only remain silent. Only the young girl clutched her stomach, laughing uncontrollably. Her delicate finger pointed at Kevin Schuyler as she nearly laughed herself into spasms. Kevin Schuyler sighed helplessly, picked the little girl up onto his shoulders, and blended into the crowd. Above the stronghold, a flash of light appeared, and an old man holding a staff abruptly materialized. The old man wore a crown made of branches, his beard and eyebrows snowy white and at least 30 centimeters long. He donned a white robe adorned with strange runic patterns. His eyes shone like torches. The old man formed a one-handed seal, retrieving a talisman from his chest. The talisman bore a face, half crying and half smiling, exuding an eerie sense of mystery, as though it contained some profound law. He then took out a purple orb, the size of a chicken egg. Under the old man's seal, the orb fused into the talisman. With a gentle shake, the talisman suddenly ignited. After burning out, it transformed into a small green humanoid figure with wings, resembling a sprite. Around its green body, tiny white lights sparkled. The small figure closed its eyes to sense something. Moments later, it abruptly opened its eyes and said, "Nearby." After speaking, several figures appeared in the sky. The old man waved his hand, and the figures vanished, dispersing into the crowd in the stronghold. Under the sky, bursts of thunder suddenly roared, thick fog covered the distant horizon, and a flood was surging toward them. The ground trembled slightly, and Kevin Schuyler could clearly sense it. This was the result of tens of thousands of cavalry advancing together. Moreover, a heavy murderous aura was slowly sweeping in from the horizon. The enemy forces were approaching. Kevin Schuyler desperately wanted to leave the Immortal domain immediately and head toward the Elven clan. With the map given by the Skeleton King, he quickly grabbed the little girl and made his way toward the Elven clan. After traveling for a while, Kevin Schuyler reached a river. The river was shallow and wide, spanning at least several hundred meters. Just as he was about to stop to drink some water, he noticed the river had a faint red hue. Clearly, there were traces of blood in the water. It seemed a fierce battle was taking place upstream, staining the downstream waters red. Kevin Schuyler patted the little girl on the head and said, "Sigh, even the water is undrinkable now." The little girl stared at the crimson river, momentarily lost in thought, as if pondering something. Kevin Schuyler gently tapped her and asked, "What's wrong? Something on your mind?" The little girl snapped out of her thoughts, pouting charmingly. "WH. What does it have to do with you?" Well, this little one was so pitiful while stealing food earlier, and now she's acting all haughty?" The little girl shot Kevin Schuyler a sideways glance, clearly displeased. Kevin Schuyler chuckled and ruffled her twin braids as a gesture of apology. Natural disasters guard the heavens, life and death battles rage on, blood stains the great rivers, grievances freeze the ice. To Kevin Schuyler's astonishment, the little girl, who usually stammered, suddenly recited a poem fluently. Just as he was about to ask her about it, the little girl looked at him and said, "WH. What? I just said it," suddenly. Kevin Schuyler gave the little girl another once-over from head to toe. "Do you know any other poems? Quick, tell Big Brother." Poems? I don't know any." Sensing the situation turning unfavorable, the little girl quickly grabbed Heaven-born Fong and ran along the riverbank. Her petite figure looked particularly graceful under the glow of the sunset. Kevin Schuyler pretended to chase her, slowly trailing behind. "You dare keep secrets from me?" I really don't know, any poems." The word poem was the last one, and the little one took a moment to finally utter it. Kevin Schuyler watched the little one flit around like a butterfly among the rapeseed flowers by the riverside, then glanced toward the distant battlefield where fierce combat raged on. A strange feeling surged within him, an indescribable lump in his throat. As the sunset descended, this world always seemed to leave people feeling powerless. A sudden scream shattered Kevin Schuyler's train of thought. Looking up, the little one had vanished without a trace. Kevin Schuyler hurriedly gave chase. Ahead, everything was eerily quiet, with no signs of disturbance. The little one and Heaven-born Fong had disappeared entirely. Anxiety welled up in Kevin Schuyler's heart as he stepped forward, only to realize he had suddenly entered a stone formation. What is this? Kevin Schuyler took a step back, but found himself still trapped within the stone formation. How did I end up here? There didn't seem to be any formation outside. In the distance, the faint silhouette of the little one flickered in and out of view. Kevin Schuyler rushed forward, but despite clearly moving ahead, he couldn't get any closer to the little one. After fumbling for a while, he finally reached the center of the stone formation, where he found the little one kneeling on a high platform in the middle. Her hands were raised, and she was murmuring something under her breath. "This again? Do you also know witchcraft?" Within 100-meter radius, towering stone pillars exuded a faint killing intent, each engraved with strange and intricate patterns. This place seemed like an entirely separate world. Although it spanned only 100 meters, it clearly contained countless formations. A single misstep might transport one to another unknown location. Thus, even though the little one was right in front of him, Kevin Schuyler hesitated. Staying put allowed him to keep her in sight, but stepping forward might lead him somewhere completely unpredictable. Kevin Schuyler forced himself to calm down and carefully analyze the surroundings. The little one continued her prayer-like ritual, and the stone pillars around them seemed to begin rising. Immortal bloodline, spreading across the heavens, guardian divine beast, two hearts as one, unseal the heavens and earth, trade for a peaceful world. The massive stone pillars trembled violently, and the central high platform began to descend. The little one, situated in the middle of the formation, appeared unaffected and continued her ritual movements. Kevin Schuyler, on the other hand, could barely stand as the intense tremors engulfed the entire area. Countless lightning bolts flashed in the sky. The central high platform disappeared entirely, replaced by a massive black hole leading deep into the earth. Without hesitation, the little one jumped into the abyss. In the distance, within a massive conference hall, an old man wearing a crown suddenly opened his eyes and shouted loudly, "The stone formation has been activated, a descendant of the Heavenly Empress is approaching. Shadow Division, mobilize at once. Wait. Kevin Schuyler moved, realizing the magic formation had disappeared, and hurriedly chased into the pit. This pit seemed bottomless, and ever since entering, Kevin Schuyler had been falling endlessly. A bottomless pit? This time, I'm done for. The sensation of free-falling endlessly, with nothing around to grab onto, was deeply unsettling. Kevin Schuyler silently blamed himself. He hadn't observed carefully before jumping. Who exactly was that little girl? How could all of this be explained? Kevin Schuyler felt utterly speechless, as if he knew nothing and was being manipulated over and over again. As his body continued to descend, Kevin Schuyler suddenly noticed that light began to emerge in the once pitch-dark cave. It became unclear whether he was still falling or had come to a stop. Finally, a vast brightness appeared, revealing an enormous world, all in white. In the distance, a towering statue came into view. The statue depicted a figure wearing a crown, adorned in magnificent royal robes. The left hand formed a sword seal positioned in front of the chest, while the right hand appeared to be cradling an infant. Kevin Schuyler took a couple of steps forward and realized he could move, but beneath his feet was nothingness. The sensation sent a cold sweat down his spine. Approaching to observe more closely, the statue was of an adult male with a solemn face, exuding authority even in silence. His sharp brows and piercing eyes radiated strength, and the overwhelming regal aura made one feel an instinctive urge to bow. As Kevin Schuyler drew nearer, he discovered the statue was unimaginably massive. From afar, he could see the whole figure, but standing at the base, his view couldn't encompass it anymore. Near the statue's eyes, a faint shadow seemed to flicker. That is. It was the little girl. At this moment, she was clinging to the statue's eye, crying desperately. Her cries were heart-wrenching, as though tearing through one's soul. The little girl clutched the statue's eyebrow, sobbing uncontrollably. Her childlike voice, frail and sorrowful, made her grief even more poignant. Tears streamed from her eyes like rivers, dripping onto the statue. Kevin Schuyler quickly climbed up, but as he approached the statue, an enormous surge of energy struck out of nowhere. Kevin Schuyler retreated hastily, activating his protective shield. He launched a punch, but the massive force still sent him flying 100 meters back. There's a barrier. Roar. From the distance, a massive shadow flew toward him. A deafening roar tore through the air, and a ferocious beast resembling a chelan approached. The creature looked like a lion but wasn't quite one, its entire body covered in a dense mane. Its eyes glowed blood-red, and its sharp claws gleamed like the full moon. Even before it arrived, the space around them was already engulfed in its intense killing intent. Who dares to be so bold as to trespass in my father's tomb? A clear, furious shout echoed. It was a woman's voice. It turned out that atop the head of the beast, a figure in white appeared, robes as pure as snow, exuding an overwhelming killing intent, heading straight in this direction. Hashtag Chapter 17, The Legacy of the Immortal Heavenly Emperor, Part 2. Roar. A colossal roar shook the heavens and the earth as a giant beast resembling a chelan soared through the air, carrying a young woman dressed in white. The beast seemed capable of stepping on the void itself, its feet concealing a formation. With every step, the void trembled. Kevin Schuyler moved with difficulty, his strength too weak, forcing him to find a place to hide. The young woman in white approached, staring intently at the small figure below from midair. Their eyes locked, big eyes staring into smaller, tear-filled ones. The little one sniffled softly, as if the woman before her had bullied her, casting a look of reproach. The young woman, however, widened her eyes, carefully examining the child before her. Suddenly, both of their eyes lit up, as though they had discovered a long-lost hope. Sister! Little sister! Boom! A loud explosion erupted at the entrance, and a majestic, handsome figure appeared. Draped in an enormous white cloak, his strikingly proud and extraordinary features stood out. His eyebrows were white, and his eyes shone like the sun, radiating a cold, sharp light. Clad in a white magical robe with a jade belt at his waist, 3 energy spheres orbited around him: fire, ice, and lightning. By the decree of the Witch King, destroy the immortal heavenly emperor's statue, slay his descendants, and spare no one who dares to obstruct. 3 figures emerged behind him. The first was short and seemed to blend seamlessly into the void, making him nearly invisible to the naked eye. He held a pair of black scythes exuding a chilling aura, a testament to the countless lives he had taken. The second was a towering, muscular figure wielding a battle axe, his rippling muscles giving off an aura of raw savagery. The third was entirely green, holding a blood spear in both hands. His elongated fangs covered half his face, and his blood-red eyes radiated a terrifying, eerie presence that left one speechless. Together, the 4 exuded a murderous aura so intense that countless vortexes formed, splitting the ground and shaking the earth. The young woman in white raised her hand, summoning a jade sword about a meter long. With a flick of her wrist, it emitted a radiant white light. Humph, killing me won't be so easy. The 5 figures on the ground remained motionless, seemingly unfamiliar with the young woman. Feeling ignored, she stomped her foot hard, prompting her beast to roar fiercely, and dived down from the sky. The man in the white robe glanced around the void, finally noticing the young woman as she charged at him, her entire being exuding killing intent. Yet, he remained still, as if he didn't consider her a threat. Only when she closed in did he speak. If you all don't act, I will. Ding. The young woman and the beast suddenly froze in place, as if inertia didn't exist here, coming to an abrupt halt. Beneath the point where the young woman stopped, a shadow emerged. Despite the ample light, the figure's appearance remained indiscernible, as though it was the embodiment of darkness itself or perhaps cloaked in black. In its hand was a circular weapon, exuding a chilling aura that sent shivers down the spine, even though it didn't look physically threatening. Not far away, another figure appeared. Kevin Schuyler recognized this individual. It was the one who had been silently watching him but could never be found. Now, the figure revealed itself. This one, though similarly shrouded in mystery, wore a mask, and their form was discernible, a woman wielding a similar weapon. You soul, phantom assassin, is it just the 2 of you? To kill you, that's enough, the shadowy figure replied in a deep voice, its tone making it impossible to discern gender. The man in white robes showed no expression, tilting his head slightly. Behind him, 3 figures stood. 2 of them vanished in an instant, reappearing before you soul and phantom assassin. Duke, hidden assassin, humph, the woman called phantom assassin seemed unfazed. Her heterochromatic eyes flickered continuously, and her full red lips pressed together, exuding an irresistible allure. The 4 stood off in tense silence. Kevin Schuyler was quietly alarmed. These were at least high-ranking elites, on par with the Bone Skull King. For him to encounter such beings was akin to courting death. Whoosh! Phantom assassin suddenly vanished, reappearing in front of the Duke. The circular weapon, initially devoid of killing intent, now radiated a ghostly glow as it struck down on the Duke. The Duke was visibly startled, hurriedly raising his battle axe to block. Boom! 5 consecutive strikes landed in an instant, each executed with lightning speed. The Duke was left with gruesome wounds, his hands trembling as he gripped his battle axe. The outcome of the clash was decided in mere moments. Unwilling to accept defeat, the Duke charged forward, swinging his battle axe horizontally in an attempt to cleave Phantom Assassin at the waist. She sneered coldly and dodged effortlessly. After several exchanges, the Duke suddenly roared, golden light erupting around him. Phantom Assassin realized her body was no longer under her control, propelling her toward the Duke. She quickly adjusted her stance, and the 2 exchanged 100 blows in an instant. The Duke suddenly grabbed her shoulder and hurled her with force. A spiraling storm appeared as Phantom Assassin was flung away. However, she quickly regained her footing and launched a stronger assault, clearly intent on delivering a fatal blow, leaving the Duke struggling to defend himself. Finally, the circular weapon in Phantom Assassin's hand glowed with a sudden blue light. Her ultimate move, Soul Reaper, was unleashed. Boom! The force was several times stronger, and the axe of the Axe King could no longer withstand it, shattering under the impact. The merciless, killing intent slashed from his shoulder to his abdomen, nearly severing the Axe King's waist. Fresh blood spurted out, dyeing a patch of land red. Just as Phantom Thorn was about to deliver the killing blow, a blood spear flashed, carrying an eerie glow as it aimed straight for Phantom Thorn's heart. Green-tinted blood spears shot out one after another. Phantom Thorn struggled to dodge them. The clawed man suddenly let out a loud roar, his entire body turning blood red, moving like a streak of light straight toward Phantom Thorn. Rolling several times, Phantom Thorn still couldn't evade and was struck. His body immediately felt as heavy as Mount Tai, making movement nearly impossible. Moreover, the clawed man struck again, launching several blood spears at a speed many times faster. Phantom Thorn, flipping in midair, threw a dagger in desperation to evade, but one blood spear still aimed directly at his forehead. The aura of death spread, Phantom Thorn's heart raced as his eyes locked onto the approaching spear. His hands, however, couldn't react in time. At this critical moment, Soul Phantom descends. A voice rang out from afar. Instantly, the sky was filled with illusions, cold winds howled, and countless clones of Soul Phantom appeared. One clone managed to intercept the blood spear, saving Phantom Thorn's life. The stealth assassin, taking advantage of his invisibility, flickered in and out of sight. Originally evenly matched with Soul Phantom, the sudden appearance of countless clones left the stealth assassin with nowhere to hide. The moment he revealed himself, he was attacked by countless clones. Finally struck, he fell with emotion like a carp leaping over the dragon gate, spitting out blood, narrowly escaping death. The man in white robes coldly remarked, "Useless trash." The man in white robes drew out a staff of divinity from beneath his cloak. The staff, crafted entirely of wood, bore intricate and mysterious carvings along its length, and at its apex rested a blue-violet flower of divine brilliance. Waves of terrifying magical energy emanated from the bloom. The Azure Staff, a legendary staff of divinity, wielding supreme power. The young woman clad in white, who had been imprisoned, cried out in alarm the moment she saw the man in white robes take action. Splurt. The boar-fanged man, surrounded by Phantom Soul and Illusion Fong, fought with increasing ferocity. His vitality surged with every strike, leaving his opponents deeply troubled. His blood-drenched spear grew faster and more powerful, exuding an eerie crimson mist. Ultimately, Phantom Soul was grazed by the spear, his right arm torn apart, blood streaming freely as the wicked energy corroded his flesh. Illusion Fong, witnessing this, gritted his teeth and spun his circular blade of killing intent, slamming it fiercely into the boar-fanged man. The devastating force cracked the earth like fragile paper, sending shards of rock spiraling into the air. Though the boar-fanged man was formidable, he dared not block the attack head-on, swiftly dodging to the side. Unexpectedly, Illusion Fong surged forward, his circular blade flashing with a blue gleam. Cleansing strike. Splurt. Before the boar-fanged man could react, he was slashed across the waist, his body split in two. With a look of unwillingness and agony, he departed this world. The man in white robes observed the scene coldly, seemingly indifferent. At last, he made his move. Raising the Azure Staff, he summoned a massive meteor from the heavens. Illusion Fong and Phantom Soul were horrified, scrambling to evade as the meteor descended, engulfed in a massive blaze, relentlessly pursuing them. The scorching energy emanating from it caused their bodies to writhe in discomfort. At that moment, a crescent-shaped energy blade shot forth from the man in white robes. The blade, hundreds of meters long, skimmed parallel to the ground, carrying a terrifying magical array as it sped toward its targets at the speed of light. Illusion Fong narrowly evaded by somersaulting mid-air, but Phantom Soul was struck directly, sent flying hundreds of meters back, coughing blood as he collapsed, gravely injured and unable to rise. Illusion Fong, enduring the searing heat of the meteor, retreated swiftly while hurling a dagger. The dagger, trailing a golden streak, shot eerily toward the man in white robes. He dismissed it with a wave of his hand, summoning a massive ripple of water around him that effortlessly halted the dagger. The weapon froze into crystalline shards before shattering. Simultaneously, the ripples surged forward, rapidly reaching Illusion Fong and Phantom Soul. Clink! Both were frozen solid, unable to move. Their expressions, locked in their final moments of struggle, remained frozen in place, leaving them incapable of continuing the fight. Sanctuary, the highest-level protective barrier of a legendary mage. The young woman in white cried out once more in shock. The man in white robes let out a cold snort. With a wave of the azure staff, the young woman in white was bound mid-air. The massive beast was just about to roar when the man formed a seal with his hands, pointing a finger outward. A colossal vortex appeared, filled with countless magical arrays brimming with murderous intent. The beast was struck by the vortex and was immediately disintegrated by the arrays. Its body began to break apart, skin shredded, flesh dissolved, bones crushed. It didn't even have time to let out a final roar before being utterly obliterated, reduced to dust. Kevin Schuyler shuddered. This man in white robes was terrifying. The young woman in white angrily shouted, "Summoner, you traitor! Back when my father was alive, he treated you generously, and now you dare aid the Sorcerer King to usurp my father's throne." The man paused briefly but quickly regained his composure. His eyes were filled with indifference as he looked up at the girl weeping on the statue. Just as he was about to act, a massive blade light descended from the heavens with thunderous momentum. Kevin Schuyler had made his move. After finding the heaven-born Fong at the base of the statue, he seized the opportunity to launch an attack. It wasn't that he sought death, but if he didn't act now, he would surely be branded a coward. Even though he knew the opponent was a high-level powerhouse while he was merely at the beginner stage, and the young woman in white, at least mid-level, had been subdued in an instant, he had no idea what he could do. At this moment, he decided to take advantage of the distraction and strike for some gain. But the summoner cast a frosty gaze, his icy pupils locking onto Kevin Schuyler. Seeing the blade light descending upon him, the summoner didn't even bother to glance at it. When the blade struck, pale blue ripples emerged around him, leaving him entirely unharmed. Who dares? Kevin Schuyler sighed inwardly. The gap in power was too vast, he couldn't win. I am Kevin Schuyler. Royal Protector Sect? No. Which sect? Neutral entity. Boom. The summoner struck. Despite Kevin Schuyler's extraordinary reflexes, he was no match for the magic. Seems I'll have to find another way to approach. Each orb of light launched from the summoner's hand was easily dodged by Kevin Schuyler as he steadily closed the distance between himself and the summoner. The summoner, fully aware of this, raised one hand toward the sky and swung it down. A blazing meteor descended from above. Kevin Schuyler smirked inwardly, having already observed this spell earlier. Although the rock carried intense heat, its movement was straightforward, relying on rolling momentum once it hit the ground. Taking advantage of this, Kevin Schuyler pivoted 90 degrees and leapt several steps away, swiftly exiting the fiery meteor's attack range. Though his clothes caught fire briefly, a light pat was enough to extinguish it. Humph. The summoner frowned, forming a series of seals with his hands. Kevin Schuyler watched intently, memorizing the summoner's hand movements. Suddenly, Kevin Schuyler realized his body was frozen, devoid of any warmth. Extreme frost. The summoner quickly unleashed countless orbs of light. Gritting his teeth, Kevin Schuyler channeled his inner energy from his dantian, activating Spiral Ring. A spiraling orb of light formed in Kevin Schuyler's right hand, hurtling toward the summoner. Despite his body being bitterly cold, Kevin Schuyler was compelled to attack, shooting forward like an arrow released from a bow. Each light orb was effortlessly neutralized. The summoner stepped back, lightly waving a blue staff, conjuring an ice wall. Frozen wall. Kevin Schuyler was startled. His spiral ring struck the ice wall, shattering it, but he was simultaneously encased in ice, his entire body frozen solid. Slash. A massive crescent-shaped blade of light slashed toward Kevin Schuyler. Immobilized, Kevin Schuyler could only watch as the blade approached. Just as it neared, his absolute defense instinctively activated. Though Kevin Schuyler remained unharmed, the immense impact force sent him flying 100 meters away. His body trembled from the shock, leaving him numb all over. Letting out a loud roar, Kevin Schuyler struggled to his feet, his cold gaze fixed on the summoner. "Humph, you overestimate yourself." Kevin Schuyler was helpless. In this situation, the power gap was too vast, leaving no chance at all. "Fine, if I have to die, I'll die with dignity. There's a young lady watching over there, even in death, I must fall on the path of courage." Kevin Schuyler moved with incredible speed, weaving left and right, holding the heaven-born Feng in both hands. 200 meters. The summoner continuously swung the blue staff, unleashing countless light spheres filled with immense energy aimed at Kevin Schuyler. He dodged, twisted, crouched, and decisively activated absolute defense. As long as he could get closer, everything would be easier. 150 meters. The summoner grew furious, forming a hand seal with one hand, then fiercely swung the blue staff, spinning to unleash several crescent-shaped light blades, larger and much stronger than before, which suddenly shot out. Kevin Schuyler cursed inwardly, "Damn it, does your magic have no cooldown? Is this some unlimited skill version?" Wind spear. The massive blade split into three, shattering the ground and clashing with the crescent light blades. Pfft. Kevin Schuyler was sent flying. Pfft. He was struck midair again. Pfft. 7 continuous light blades struck fiercely against the absolute defense, leaving Kevin Schuyler injured. Though the light blades couldn't break through the absolute defense to cause direct harm, their terrifying energy still impacted his body. Of course, without absolute defense, Kevin Schuyler would have been torn apart by now. Blood dyed the blue sky red as Kevin Schuyler, suspended in the air, looked at the young lady crying in the distance and forced a strained smile, blood staining his teeth. The young lady, watching from afar, cried even louder. Kevin Schuyler thought to himself, so be it. I was born not knowing where, and I'll die not knowing why, not even understanding why I was born or why I must die. That man over there, looking so dashing, it's not a shame to die by his hand. Is your wife dead or something? Your face looks so gloomy. Kevin Schuyler closed his eyes as countless waves of primal energy surged within him, yet he didn't even have the chance to use them. Kevin Schuyler crashed heavily to the ground. The girl in white still struggled, her hands tightly bound, her cries echoing through the sky. The summoner's cold gaze, the entire scene, was like a painting etched deeply into Kevin Schuyler's heart. Perhaps I'm too insignificant, he thought. I shouldn't have taken on such a grand mission. The extinction of humanity? Let it be. The internal strife of the immortal clan? Let it be. The beast clan's conspiracy? Let it be. Why did I have to meddle? What have I been fighting for all this time? For this girl? Impossible, I've only known her for a few days. For pride? Wasn't there a beautiful woman watching just now? Not charging forward wouldn't be manly. Ridiculous. What's the point of pride when you don't even have your life? At this moment, countless questions swirled in Kevin Schuyler's mind. What exactly am I fighting for? Even with an IQ of 200, everything now seemed unclear. Fighting for faith? Ridiculous. I don't even know what my faith is. Then, why am I here? Kevin Schuyler's forehead glimmered with a golden light, enveloping him entirely. He felt a warm stream flowing into his body, reaching his heart, then his brain. Eventually, he saw a golden figure. She knelt on the ground, hands raised toward the sky, muttering softly, her body trembling, yet her resolve as firm as steel. Hannah. Hannah Sterling. Sigh, fighting for myself, then. I was born of heaven and earth, created from yin and yang, surely, I have a purpose. Otherwise, why would I exist? At that moment, two large characters on his chest gleamed with golden light, and a stream of information appeared. Are you kidding me? Can't you just explain everything in one go? Looking at the lengthy stream of information, Kevin Schuyler remained silent. In his mind, blurry figures began to emerge, each seemingly a formation of some kind. Their movements interconnected, revealing the profound mysteries of the universe. Kevin Schuyler quietly observed, learned, and felt the essence within his body healing his injuries. Particularly, two purple orbs of light accelerated the mending of his shattered chest bones at a speed visible to the naked eye. Outside, a young girl saw Kevin Schuyler collapse and screamed. She leaped down from a height of 1,000 meters yet landed unharmed. Kevin Schuyler, big brother. Kevin Schuyler, big brother. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her face streaked with tears, and her gaze bloodshot. She no longer resembled a child at all. Suddenly, she turned, her expression cold as she glared at the summoner in the distance. The summoner seemed to notice something had changed, but still looked on with disdain. Arrogantly gripping a green staff, he prepared to bind her. In truth, father is not dead. For the first time, a second expression appeared on the summoner's face, astonishment. Though the immortal heavenly emperor was said to have mysteriously disappeared, most of the rebels believed he was dead. After all, every life has its limits. Moreover, the Witch King had once used extraordinary means to search for signs of the emperor's life, but found nothing. The immortal domain, home to countless living beings, was once a flourishing land blessed by heaven and earth, where the sun and moon shared their grace. Yet you all insist on waging war. Those who bring suffering to the world will ultimately taste the world's suffering. There are no absolute good or evil people, but pain is always balanced. You've caused countless lives to lose their homes and loved ones, all for your ambition. You're merely pawns of the supreme rulers, whose grand chessboard has cost billions of lives. Father left, because he had more important matters to attend to. His lifelong pursuit was to bring peace to the world. As his daughter, I will inherit his will. It was unbelievable. The young girl, who usually stammered, had delivered such an eloquent and impassioned speech. The summoner regained his cold demeanor. Anyone can bring peace. His Majesty, the Witch King, can as well. The Demon King Vu Yu initiated reforms in pursuit of peace. Reforms often demand sacrifices. Only by letting the world taste suffering can it mature and appreciate the value of hard-earned peace. Although the Heavenly Emperor has temporarily brought peace to the immortal realm, it will ultimately be buried under the weight of ignorance. Peace cannot last forever, only through war can the world understand the worth of peace. Naive one, have you inherited your father's naivety? Indeed, prolonged peace can lead to complacency, but suffering is not the only way to make people cherish peace. The bond between individuals is the true preservative of peace. When humanity enters an era of mutual understanding, that will be the dawn of eternal peace. Stubborn fools. The summoner had clearly run out of patience. Waving the blue staff, he prepared to act. At that moment, the young girl spread her arms wide. Father, may your will illuminate the bloodline of peace. Grant me infinite energy and bring light to the world. Humph, naive. The summoner formed a one-handed seal. An immense amount of energy began to gather. To destroy such a large statue required an overwhelming source of power, especially since the statue was protected by a barrier. Suddenly, the statue, which was originally lifeless, opened its eyes. Two beams of light, stretching thousands of meters, shot toward the young girl. Thunder seemed to rumble in the skies as the girl bathed in golden light. Her body became extraordinarily pure, her clothes vanished, and a silver armor adorned her form. Her entire being shimmered with silver radiance, which grew even more dazzling under the golden light. Gradually, the young girl began to ascend into the air, her eyes closed, her head slightly tilted upward, as if gazing at her father. Everything appeared utterly surreal. Immortal shield. The summoner stared in astonishment at the silver-armored figure in the distance, exclaiming in shock. Even the white-robed maiden looked on in disbelief at the scene unfolding before her. Without hesitation, the massive formation was completed. The summoner pulled out a round gemstone engraved with a mysterious magical array, which rapidly absorbed the mana of heaven and earth. A beam of light shot skyward as the summoner hovered in midair. Whoosh! Countless light blades slashed toward the statue. The summoner clearly understood that the statue was the true source of power. These light blades, each nearly 1,000 meters long, were clearly far more potent than the previous ones. After releasing them, the summoner appeared visibly fatigued, a testament to their overwhelming strength. Boom! The massive statue was struck, causing countless fragments to fall. The white-robed maiden screamed, "No! You dare destroy my father's statue?" The summoner ignored her words and continued his assault. The second light blade struck, causing the statue to tremble, but not collapse. The third, the fourth, finally, after the ninth light blade was unleashed, the statue was pushed to its limit. Its torso shattered, the golden light in its eyes faded, and the towering statue, nearly 1,000 meters tall, crumbled. It fell, shattering the void, while the young girl remained suspended in midair, seemingly unaware of everything happening around her. Boom! As the statue collapsed, the earth quaked violently. Countless cracks appeared on the ground, and lightning streaked across the sky. Though this was not the true heavens and earth, it resembled an apocalyptic scene. The entire world trembled as if on the brink of destruction. The summoner's face darkened. Significantly, clearly drained by the immense energy expenditure of the light blades. But when he turned to bind the young girl, he was shocked to discover that both the girl and Kevin Schuyler had vanished. #### Chapter 18, Teleportation. The immortal land of the Southwest, the ancient capital under the rule of the immortal Heavenly Emperor, Dadak City. In the Royal Council Hall at the city's center, dozens of high-ranking officials and elders of the royalist faction gathered to discuss critical matters. The atmosphere was tense and suffocating. Although no one spoke, nearly everyone wore a frown, seemingly troubled by some grave concern. Our frontline cities have completely fallen. The upper route, Storm City, the central route, Ice Crocodile City, and the lower route, Kirin City, have been successively occupied by the enemy. Now, millions of rebel forces have crossed the Yangtze River, their blades aimed directly at Dadak. The elderly man with a silver beard, seated at the foremost position, finally broke the silence. He was the same elder who had created the green figurine above Kirin City. The two princesses have both gone missing, and the Heavenly Emperor's statue has been destroyed. Each piece of bad news spilled from the old man's lips like a relentless storm, as if he wouldn't stop until every shocking revelation had been shared. Everyone lowered their heads, bracing themselves for even worse tidings. By the time the Shadow Division arrived, the battle was already over. Fortunately, they managed to rescue the two generals, Soul Phantom and Illusion Assassin. Prophet, you once said that when the two princesses meet, the Heavenly Emperor's last will would be revealed, and hope would emerge. Why then? Across the room, a tall, muscular figure stood up, exuding an aura of righteousness. His entire body was clad in armor, including a steel helmet that covered his head. His expression was stern and commanding. Chaos, mind your words. You are speaking to the prophet, interjected a strikingly handsome young man, standing beside the prophet. Though he also wore a head covering, it was not made of steel, but rather a magically enhanced hood. His eyes gleamed with intelligence. He was none other than the royalist faction's strategist, Silent Mage. Despite his youth, Silent Mage's extraordinary intellect had won over the royalists. His strength was undeniable, and his ability to counter enemy magic left opposing sorcerers powerless. Since assuming the role of strategist, he had swiftly reorganized the chaotic rebellion, mobilized the army, and established the current stalemate. It could be said that without Silent Mage, the one standing here today would likely be the Witch King and his minions. The prophet interrupted, motioning for Silent Mage to sit down. Prophet is the loyal subordinate of the immortal Heavenly Emperor, formerly holding the position of Prime Minister of the Immortal Clan, standing beneath one yet above thousands. Now, he naturally leads the royal guardian faction, opposing the sorcerer demon king. His reputation speaks for itself. Our hope has indeed emerged, but before it appears before us, we still have a long period of perseverance ahead.